Hey guys, tonight we're sailing into the belly of a North Atlantic fog bank. No GPS, no satellite pings, just you and a 40-foot longship carved from Danish oak. Imagine salt spray stinging your eyes as you clutch the sternpost, your knuckles whitening with every heave of the waves. Modern survival stats aren't kind here. Odds say you'd last 3 days before mistaking starfish for breakfast. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your coordinates and local time. Let's map this global insomnia club. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The year is 872 CE, or thereabouts. Because Vikings didn't exactly carve dates into their longships. You're not some modern glamping Viking with a thermos of herbal tea, no. Your beard freezes to the oar during winter voyages. Your weather app is the ache in your left knee when storms approach. Forget Hollywood horned helmets. Real Norse navigators wore practicality like a second skin when they wore shirts at all. Here's the kicker. They crossed the North Atlantic using science. We're still reverse engineering. Mainstream history books love their swords and shields. But this is about outsmarting horizons. Remember those sagas mentioning solarsteinn, not some Tolkien knockoff. Think calcite crystals that polarized sunlight through clouds. Archaeologists dug one up near a 9th century shipwreck. No dragon carvings included. You squint at the overcast sky, your sunstone warming in calloused palms. Twilight bleeds into dawn as you rotate the crystal, and there it is. A faint glowing line slices through the haze like a golden thread. Not magic, just physics playing peekaboo with photons. Steering toward that glimmer means life. Veering off could mean joining the whale's menu. Don't get too cocky. That bird migration trick you read about, it works, until your lookout confuses a tired puffin for a land-seeking raven. Historical records mention Leif Erikson releasing feathered scouts mid-voyage. But good luck keeping a raven fed on dried cod. One misfired bird could add 6 weeks to your itinerary. Hope you packed extra fermented shark. Speaking of meals, ever wonder how they tracked time without Rolexes? Meet the sun compass. Not some fancy gadget, just a wooden disc with notches marking shadow lengths. High noon casts a dagger-like line pointing true north, assuming you're not seasick enough to misread it. Cloudy days meant playing shadow puppets with your crew, Viking charades with higher stakes. But here's the quirky bit. Some navigators allegedly used their own ears as tools. 9th century sagas hint at listening stones, placed underwater to detect distant coastlines. Imagine pressing a whalebone trumpet against the hull, its vibrations revealing shoreline echoes miles away. Skeptics call it poetic license, until you try whispering across a fjord yourself. Historians still argue whether Viking women joined these odysseys. brave sights with navigational tools suggest yes. But good luck convincing a 1950s textbook your crew doesn't care. They're too busy bailing water and composing rhymes about that one guy who forgot the seal jerky. Oral tradition wasn't just culture. It was Google Maps in iambic pentameter. You tighten the sail as the first stars pierce the twilight. Ursa Major grinding across the sky like a celestial millstone. Polaris becomes your anchor until summer nights bleach the sky white. Then it's back to Sunstones and prayer, preferably to Thor rather than Loki. Wave patterns become your cheat code next. Swells from the southwest mean Greenland's icy claws are near northeastern ripples hint at Scandinavian shores. Modern wave buoys, please, your fingertips read the ocean's pulse through the tiller. Each crest a Morse code message from Neptune. The cold nips harder now, fingers stiffening around the rope. Should have taken that advice about linseed oil mittens. One navigator's journal mentions rubbing lamb fat on hands to prevent frostbite. And let's just say, moisturizing routine meant something different back then. Dawn arrives, a blood orange smear behind slate gray clouds. Your sunstone confirms what the gulls have been squawking since midnight. Land ho. The crew erupts in raspy cheers, last week's near mutiny forgotten. You don't admit it took 3 tries to align the crystal. Some legends are better left unscrutinized. As the shore sharpens into cliffs and kelp-strewn beaches, you smirk. Take that, Google Earth. Your reward, first dibs on the freshwater spring. And not having to explain to the chieftain why his longships parked in Dublin instead of Reykjavik. Tonight's saga practically writes itself. Just don't mention the Puffin incident. You grip the longship's prow as salt spray stings your cheeks. Waves heave beneath planks flexing like living wood. This isn't pillage and plunder hour. We're in the expansion era now, 8th to 12th centuries, when Norse sails conquered oceans. Forget Hollywood's horned helmets, real Vikings wore practicality. Those iconic ships, more Ferrari than freighter, slim hulls gliding over shallows where warships would founder. Trade drove them first. I'll fight anyone who claims otherwise. Silver hoards from Baghdad to Rams spilled across Baltic beaches, proof of deals struck worth dying for. But here's the twist. They weren't just raiders. Farmers hauled butter to Baltic ports, barreled fat so precious. Crews caulked leaks with it when tar ran low. Imagine smelling like rancid dairy for months. Yet another reason Greenlanders might ditch the homeland. Skalds sang of Rurik, the mercenary who founded Russia's first dynasty. But did he exist? Chronicles say yes. DNA whispers maybe. Meanwhile, thralls scooped Atlantic cod guts under northern lights, sustenance for voyages where bread molded in a week. Speaking of food, ever tried fermented shark? Vikings did, and honestly, their survival feels more impressive than colonizing Iceland. Historians still argue whether Erik the Red's Greenland hype was PR genius or climate luck, medieval ads meet Little Ice Age. Meanwhile, Bjarni Herjolfsson missed Greenland completely, stumbled on Canada instead. Classic. Wrong turn accident, though he backtracked fast. Who wants frozen forests when promised pastures? You'd think endless horizons meant freedom, but Norse law bound tighter than rigging ropes. Break formation mid-ocean. Your kin paid fines in butter and barley. And those iconic shields, painted blood red not for drama, pine tar sealant, tinted by iron oxide. Bonus, it hid battle stains between glamour shots. Tonight, let waves rock you. Think of salt-crusted traders bartering amber while gerfalcons circle. Tomorrow, how a chunk of crystal outsmarted fog. You kneel by a salt-crusted chest. Inside lies a milky crystal veined like cracked ice. Sagas called these solarsteinn, Sunstones, though no captain's grave ever surrendered one intact until 2013. A French lab proved Iceland's spar could pinpoint the sun through cloud, even after dusk. Science finally caught up with Viking bedtime stories. Hold the stone toward the cloud-smothered sky. It filters light into twin sunbeams. Polarization magic, though your crewmates grumble about elf tricks. Line up the beams, voila. Your shadow points true north. No compass needles here, just geeky optics before glasses were cool. Here's the twist. A bishop's grave in 11th century, Iceland, hid a similar crystal. Holy relic or retired navigational aid, churchmen loathed pagan tech unless tithed discreetly. One researcher even ground a sunstone into powder, medieval Viagra myth. R.I.P. Evidence. You squint at the spar. Did navigators share these freely? Or hoard them like today? Pilots get flight manuals, Vikings, passed stone's master to apprentice. Guess who becomes priceless during month-long fog? Historians still argue whether every longship packed a sunstone or just elite Kentman pilots. Practical sailors likely relied on birds and waves more. But in the bearing balls of 1000 CE, this crystal was their laser line through murk. Tested at noon, the stone dims as the sun inches west. Calcite's party trick, blocking glare to clock solar movement. No sextants, no GPS wine, just mineral logic and squinted eyes. Yet debates rage. Maybe Vikings used oily water instead. Break the crystal. It splits clean along natural plains, North Sea geometry in mineral form. Your navigator chuckles. Better than Odin's missing eye. True, sacrificial depth perception never charted Greenland. Tonight, stash the sunstone. Tomorrow's lesson. Birds that vomit up land roots. Your boots crunch over wave-worn pebbles, each one a Viking's discarded math. Dawn paints the fjord in liquid gold, your back at the spar chest. Frost clinging to your lashes. Last night's pebbles still line your pocket. Crude calculators in a world before slide rules. Lift the sunstone again. Its pale facets catch the low light. Roll it slowly. Watch how rainbows bloom then bleed into twin streaks. Polarizations, cheat code, Vikings turned sky physics into a maritime app. Here's the textbook nugget. A 2013 University of Rents team proved Iceland's spar locates the sun within 5 degrees of accuracy, even through cloud cover as thick as Odin's beard. But here's the weird part. A 1948 Air Force experiment had pilots navigate via polarizing glasses. Worked eerily well until someone lost their shades over Labrador. Twist the stone sideways. Those faint light bands tighten like violin strings. Follow them west, where Greenland's ice shelves somehow feel within reach. Your navigator mutters about eating zeniths for breakfast. Viking humor hasn't aged well, yet you get it. Mastering this meant surviving open oceans without so much as a birthday sunset reference. Debates flare like mass torches. Did captains use these daily, or only when storms erased horizons? Some sagas mention sun-drowning days may be code for polarized light protocols. Others insist it's just poets romanticizing seasonal depression. Try not to side-eye the academics. Hold the spar at arm's length. Notice how glare softens into a crisp beam. It's all about blocking scattered light, your eyes doing matrix math before matrices existed. Modern hikers use polarized sunglasses, similarly minus the hole, avoiding sea serpent maulings. Angle. Ever hear of the Unartok disc? Wooden artifact found in a Greenlandic convent, etched with notches that align with solstice shadows. Pair that with a sunstone boom. Viking GPS AAA battery included, unless you're facing the midnight sun, then even crystals tap out. Wipe salt from the stone watch. It spark like a disco ball in Valhalla's least cool nightclub. Historians still argue whether crews sang during calibrations, work shanties versus sacred hymns. Either way, imagine harmonizing while your dinner's trying to swim off the longship. Clouds thicken overhead. Perfect. The spar's rainbows sharpen, guiding your hand like laser sights. No wonder medieval clergy called these devil's lenses. They democratized navigation away from divine intervention. Unless you tithe the bishop, then suddenly it's a miracle. Twilight bleeds into dusk. The stone still glows faintly. Modern recreations show it works up to 50 minutes post-sunset, handy for raiding parties who really need to sack a monastery before curfew. Your navigator nods. Celtic alarm clocks never stood a chance. Scan the horizon. Streaky light patterns now mirror ocean currents below. Layers of data sky and sea fused into a roadmap. Forget Instagram filters. This is 8th century AR. Just don't drop the crystal. It's worth 20 sheep and your second best child. That Baltic amber trader's diary. Scribbled notes about sun bones guiding ships through fog. Could be metaphors. Could be high-fiving another Sunstone user mid-route. We'll never know. The manuscript was used to patch a beer barrel in 1923. Rotate the stone vertically. Watch the light bands dissolve. Overcast skies meant recalculating. interpreting whale spouts, counting wing beats of anxious gulls. Flexibility was their algorithm, pinned to no single tool. Even if the sagas play up the mystic rock angle, you pocket the spar, its weight familiar now, a crashed meteorite whispering sun secrets. Tomorrow's lesson involves sniffing wind for pine resin, precursor to musky airport cologne. For now, let the polarized twilight lull you. Each light ray's a breadcrumb back when bread cost 2 arm rings and a decent sword. Stars prick the velvet black, your breath fogs in rhythm with the waves. Polaris hangs fixed, a nail hammered into the sky's roof. All else wheels around it. Ursa Major's paw sweeps west as night deepens. Here's the classroom fact. Viking navigators plotted latitude by the North Star's height. Simple as measuring a tree's shadow at noon, but with more mead involved. Your calloused finger traces the Big Dipper, its handle pointing to Arcturus. Steady as a heartbeat, that's your anchor. Now imagine doing calculus with cold-numbed hands and a wool hood soaked in sleet. No wonder they rhymed the constellations, easier to memorize when frostbite nibbles your knuckles. Check this oddball relic, a bone fragment from Gotland, engraved with concentric circles. Some say it's a star chart. Others insist it's a mead-stained doodle from a bored crewman. Either way, it sold for 80,000 krona at auction. So someone's hedging bets. Twist sideways on the damp bench. Watch how Orion's belt tilts as waves roll. The sky's a drunken clock, spinning slower than winter molasses. Navigators timed rotations between stars, crude but effective. Forget Apple Watches. Try syncing your raid schedule with Betelgeuse's rise. That midnight star poem in the Poetic Edda. Turns out it matches lunar positioning data from 9th century Iceland. Coincidence? Or the first Norse TikTok dance tutorial? You decide after 3 tankards of barley wine. Historians still argue whether they understood precession, that slow wobble in Earth's axis, shifting star positions. Sagas never mention it, but neither do they explain how to remove seal grease from a tunic. Priorities, people. A gull screams, its cry pulls your gaze downward. Waves glint like scattered mica, each crest hiding a reflection of the heavens. Viking mirrors were polished bronze for grooming, but toss one overboard at noon. Instant sundial, just don't drop your only comb. Lean into the sails, chill bite, constellations blur into streaky nimbus halos. Your navigator mutters about star paths, while squinting at Vega. Modern astronomers nod respectfully. Turns out the summer triangle aligns with Shetland trade routes. Coincidence? Ask the sheep guts they used for weather forecasts. Spot the Pleiades cluster, tiny frost lights huddled for warmth. Farmers used them to time harvests, raiders to schedule coastal strikes. Multitasking before it was a LinkedIn skill. Ever hear of the Oseberg star post? Carved oak plank found in a burial ship, notched with holes matching Draco's stars. Or maybe it's just Viking IKEA instructions. Assembly required, blood eagle not included. Dawn bleeds upward, Polaris fades like a guttering torch. You blink at the horizon, where last night's star map drowns in peach-colored haze. Navigators switched roles then, Sunstone in one hand, wind-whipped hair in the other. Imagine explaining circadian rhythms to someone who battles frost giants for fun. The ocean stretches, a vast obsidian mirror, cracked by your prow. Stars above, stars below, you're sailing through the Milky Way's ghostly twin. Poets called it Isarnkal, the Iron Road, which honestly beats Route 66 any day. Swap the spar for a drinking horn, meets honeyed burn, pushing back the chill. Somewhere, a crewman hums a tune about Thor losing his hammer in a poker game. The melody syncs with the oar strokes, an algorithm for rowing through eternity. Turn southward, Cassiopeia's crooked throne glimmers through a cloud slit. It said Ragnar Lothbrok once navigated by her smirk, a celestial inside joke. Too bad his GPS got glitchy in Northumbria. Fingernail moon now, sharp enough to slice the dark. They tracked its phases for tide charts, lunar cycles, inscribed on rune sticks. Google Calendar's ancestor, with more human sacrifice and fewer spam emails. Your eyelids droop, constellations blur into a streaky soup. The last thing you see, Ursa Minor doing the worm across the cosmos. Or maybe that's the mead talking. Tomorrow's lesson, reading cloud shapes like paranoid Rorschach tests. Sleep wraps you in a cloak of starlight, threaded with the whispers of dead navigators. They're still arguing about Ursa Major's missing toe. Rain hammers the deck. Salt stings your eyes as you fumble with a leather-wrapped lump. Peel back the sealskin there, it glows. A thumb-sized crystal flickering like trapped moonlight. Meet Iceland Spar the Vikings, mineral GPS. Mainstream museums love the 1948 Greenland find, that alderwood disc with notches for sun shadows. But this sunstone's your grail. Hold it skyward, clouds thin just enough. Twin light beams pierce the crystal, their angle pointing to where the sun hides. Works better than your phone's compass app and way more waterproof. Slide the stone into its birchwood case, carved with spirals that match star patterns on Norse brooches. Historians still argue whether every skipper had one or just elites who could afford landlubber jewelers. Either way, it beats steering by seagull vomit. Dig into the supply crate. Your nails scrape something lumpy beneath dried cod. A raven's skull emerges, its beak stuffed with a rolled parchment. Unfurl it, charcoal sketches of whales, icebergs, and a stick figure holding. Is that a microwave? Kidding. It's clearly a sunstone. Wipe brine off the artifact. Notice the tiny runes. Translated, lift me, I'm a rock. Vikings, history's first dad joke enthusiasts. Now the fringe stuff. That 1960s fisherman who swore he found a sunstone wedged in a walrus skull off Newfoundland. Smithsonian snubbed him, till a 2013 lab confirmed the crystal's polarization matched Viking trade routes. Who's laughing now, academia? Your first mate grumbles about sorcery until you demonstrate. Cloudburst obscures the horizon. You rotate the spar until its double image merges. Shadowless noon becomes readable, like a cheat code for the sun's position. Bonus quirk: sailors likely licked the stones to check for fakes. Saliva helped highlight the crystal's refractive magic. Hygienic: questionable. Effective: ask the guy who colonized Vinland. Below deck, a crewman chips at a soapstone mold. Replicas take shape, crude but functional. Toss one into the North Sea, it sinks straight down. The original artifacts, precision carved for buoyancy. Forget 3D printing. Try 8th century float physics. Storm brews again. You pocket the Sunstone and grab a rope. Modern navigators swear by the 2011 study where volunteers crossed the Baltic using replicas. They got within 4 miles of Gotland, while the control group wound up in Latvia. Drizzle soaks your tunic. The spar stays dry in its old pouch. Your mind drifts to that sun compass replica in Reykjavik's museum. Scholars recreated it using descriptions from Greenlandinga saga, then tested it during a solar eclipse. Worked like a charm, assuming charm means not crashing into Scotland. Scowl: someone passes a mead horn you sip, staring at the spar's milky depths. Debate swirls whether Vikings paired sunstones with magnetic lodestones. No evidence yet. But that's the fun part. History's just crime scenes without corpses. Sunset bleeds through storm clouds. One last chance to check the stone. Twin light beams align, pointing west toward an unseen shore. Your navigator nods, adjusts the sail with a creak of hemp. Darkness falls. You secure the spar next to your dagger. Tomorrow's problem: deciphering whale song navigation charts. For now, let the stone's faint glow mingle with starlight on the waves. Somewhere ahead, a new world whispers. Dawn breaks, a slit of gray between sea and cloud. Your fingers smell of yesterday's cod as you uncage the raven, its oily feathers glinting like wet coal. Mainstream history loves this bit. Floki Vildretharsson's birds leading settlers to Iceland, but textbooks skip the punchline. Ravens prefer pizza crusts over endless ocean. You toss the bird skyward, it squawks, circling the mast thrice before shooting northwest. Land. The crew cheers. Modern experiments prove it. Released ravens fly straight toward food sources up to 80 miles off. You're basically following a winged Uber Eats driver. Someone hands you a thrush's clavicle, carved with runic wind directions. Fringe archaeologists found 3 in Danish peat bogs during the 1990s. Peer-reviewed? No. Useful? The E rune consistently points toward your mead stash. Coincidence? Scan the horizon, nothing but rolling ink blots of waves. Your navigator mutters about bird-brained strategies until you remind him of the 1984 Faroe Islands test. Volunteers, using only puffin migration patterns, found land with within 12 hours. The GPS group spent 3 days arguing over dead batteries. Drizzle mats the raven's feathers as it returns empty-beaked. Second toss. This time it soars east without hesitation. Historians still argue whether Vikings used doves for night navigation, their infrared vision detecting land thermals. Evidence scant, but live poultry beats. Consulting a soggy star chart, you snort at the backup plan. 3 caged finches. Legend says their fatness indicated proximity to shore. Fatter birds meant shorter flights. Never proven, but hey, it's a solid excuse for mid-voyage snack raids. A crewman barters for the thrush bone for luck. You counteroffer 2 dried apples and a squirrel tooth pendant. Negotiation falters when the raven dive bombs his lunch. By noon, a smudge appears where the bird vanished. Your first mate insists it's a mirage until gannets start splashing down ahead. Seabird rulebook. Feeding flocks mean fish. Fish mean land runoff. Land runoff means not dying today. Someone hums the raven song, a 14th century Grönlandinga chant recently set to synthpop on YouTube. You resist the earworm by calculating flight vectors. At 17 knots, 30 hours to shore. Maybe, if that cloud bank doesn't, too late. The sky guts itself, rain slicing sideways. You shield the remaining birds with your cloak, their tiny hearts drumming against your ribs. Debate flares. Did longship cages have turf roofs for stress relief? No artifacts confirm it, but who wouldn't want a Viking bird spa? Lightning flashes. In that split second, you spot cormorants surfing the storm surge. Gaelic sailors called them sea ravens, but your logbook prefers slimy GPS units. They're heading east, same as your escapee bird. Double confirmation beats Odin's blessing any day. The thrush bone cracks in your grip, splitting into a makeshift compass needle. Lodestone. No. Magnetized herring scale. Possibly. You suspend it on a thread. It spins lazily before aligning with the finch's agitated pecks. By midnight, the storm dies. Stars emerge, Polaris winks behind a veil of cirrus. Your raven sleeps, wedged between a barrel and a half-knotted net. Its dreams might include breadcrumb trails or vengeance for that time you laughed at its mating call. You sketch the day's path on a scrap of birch, crude arrows tracking avian intel. Modern recreations use drones tagged with thermal cameras. Vikings used hunger and desperation. Progress depends who's buying the mead. The eastern smear grows teeth, cliffs gnawing at the horizon. Crewmates debate naming the land, Raven's Gift versus Birched Bay. You pocket the thrush bone, its E-rune now pointing toward whatever's brewing in the galley's cauldron. Sunrise reveals a cove choked with kelp and 1,000 screeching turns. Navigators' proverb, seabird noise equals safe anchorage. You add a corollary, bring earplugs. As the anchor stone drops, you untie the last finch. It rockets inland, a brown speck swallowed by pines. Hours later, you'll find its discarded cage near a stream choked with salmon. The runes carved inside, probably just a shopping list. But for now, you breathe the stink of damp gull feathers and grin. Land ho. Your boots sink into kelp-slimed sand as waves hiss retreat. Each swell that rolls ashore carries an audible pattern like a stuttering heartbeat. Mainstream research confirms it. Vikings timed wave intervals to gauge depth shifts. But textbooks never mention the true miracle, staying upright on seaweed. You wade back to the longship, its hull murmuring against the pebble beach. Place both palms against the damp wood. Tradition says seasoned navigators could feel coastal currents through the keel, seaborne vibrations, telegraphing submerged reefs. Modern replicas, they just get seasick. A crewman tosses whale blubber into the fire, thick smoke stinging your eyes. Fringe theorists claim certain captains dripped melted fat into their ears. Why? To better hear wave harmonics. Peer-reviewed, no, but you've seen Bjorn the Unwashed try it. He mistook a dolphin's sneeze for a fjord's echo. The navigator crouches, drawing wave sequences in damp sand. See the peaks, he rasps. 7 breaths between crests means shallow banks northeast. You count 8 Mississippi's worth. He scowls, erases the marks with a seaweed whip. Night brings a new rhythm, swells lengthening like drawn-out sighs. Historians still argue whether wave reading was taught or instinctual. No manuals survive, just cryptic skaldic verses about the sea's drunken staggering. You hum one, the melody syncs with the rocking ship. Coincidence? The mead says no. Dawn reveals a slick horizon, no clouds, no birds, just liquid mercury stretching forever. Perfect conditions for wave watching. You kneel at the prow, hand trailing in the chilly broth. Swells lift the ship in steady rolls, each ascent, and plunge whispering numbers. 12 degrees starboard, the helmsman barks. You nod, having felt the same shift. Subtle current tugging the rudder like a child pulling a sleeve. Oceanographers call these subsurface ridges. Your crew calls them the serpent's back. Both agree. Follow the pull or capsize. Someone spots a lone seal bobbing ahead, its head swiveling as if tracking something below. Sailors once thought pinnipeds breached near freshwater plumes. Reality, they're just nosy. Still, you note the direction it's facing. 70 years ago, a Danish trawler found Viking anchors matching seal migration paths. Your navigator swears by wave portraits, memorizing the sea's face at key locations. The choppy scowl of the Skagerrak Strait, the glassy leer of the Greenland shelf. You try sketching one in the logbook. It resembles a toddler's scribble. He tears the page, folds it into a hat. Midday calm saps the wind, sails droop like defeated flags. Now the waves speak louder, their crests cracking like eggshells. You drop a weighted line, count the pulsing tugs. Deeper waters here, the rhythm slackens. Historians found similar chords in Norwegian bog sites, preserved with bog butter. Peer review deemed them fishing gear. you're less sure. The knots match tidal charts from Reykjavik's archives. A debate erupts when the cook dumps scraps overboard. Fish guts swirl into a spiraling sinkhole, mimicking a maelstrom's vortex. Berserker sagas warn of Hafgufa, a living whirlpool. Oceanographers cite converging currents. You jot both theories, with a doodle of the cook fleeing a giant clam. Twilight blurs sea and sky, a watercolor of grays. The Navigator insists waves reflect star patterns after dark. Like the sky's wet twin, he slurs, mead breath hot in your face. You squint. Is that the Big Dipper's ripple or indigestion? By midnight, the moon paints a silver road across the swells. You recall a Faroese folktale. Waves are the footsteps of drowned navigators. Each seventh crest, they say, bears the footprint of a king. You count 6. The seventh lifts the hull end, leaves only foam. Drizzle returns, needling your cheeks. Waves chop into jagged teeth, gnawing the hull. The crew chants a 13th century rhyme. Storm rush, blood rush, bend, but don't break. Archaeologists found it scrawled inside a Gokstad ship's keel, carved during a gale or after 3 ales. Context lost to time. Your soaked tunic clings like lichen as a rogue wave slaps the starboard side. The Navigator laughs. That's the sea's hiccup. He's right. The next 3 swells arrive gentle, almost apologetic. 19th century whalers recorded similar punishment waves off Svalbard. Science blames underwater landslides. You blame Poseidon's mood swings. A walrus surfaces, snorting a geyser of mucus. Crewmen cross themselves, old habits from Christian converts. Preachers called walruses beasts of biblical deluge. Your navigator calls them ugly buoys. You note its eastward path, matching the current's pull. By dawn, the waves stretch smooth again, their backs glistening like otter fur. You spot a distant flock of eiders skimming troughs. Wave-riding birds mean steady winds ahead, or so claims an Icelandic parchment moldering in Copenhagen's archives. The birds veer south. You adjust course, hoping the document wasn't a forgery by a bored monk. The sun climbs its glare-smelting ocean into liquid gold. You close salt-crusted eyes and let the hull's vibrations map the subsurface. 50 years from now, divers will find a shipwreck here, its cargo hold stuffed with Venetian glass and basalt wave-measuring tools. For now, you trust the whispers beneath your boots. Damp fog clamps down like a wet fleece, blotting the horizon and muffling oar strokes. You squint at the shoreline's blur. Peer-reviewed studies note Norse sagas describing do heavy rocks pointing north. A nod to moss growth patterns. But let's be real, everything's mossy here. It's like Greenland's entire decor scheme is rotten avocado. A crewman scrapes lichen off a boulder, licks it, and spits. Brackish, he grunts. Fringe journals claim veteran navigators tasted vegetation to gauge proximity to freshwater streams. Academia scoffs. But you just watched this guy detect a creek half a mile inland. Either genius or he bit a hallucinogenic mushroom. The fog thins for a heartbeat, revealing a notch in the cliffs. Your navigator seizes your wrist. See that V-shaped gully? Like Odin's arrowhead. 13th century charts mark such formations as safe harbors. Modern hikers still stumble upon Viking mooring posts rusting in those slots. You nod, though it looks more like a walrus yawn. Clouds layer themselves like slate tiles overhead. Captains allegedly read their shapes as altitude maps, cirrus wisps, hinting at distant mountains. Historians still argue whether that's meteorology or meat talk. Your navigator insists a cumulonimbus bunching west means Iceland's volcanoes are grumbling. You half expect him to check the cloud's pulse. Rain begins needle-thin and icy. Seabirds scream past, wings scritching the mist. Coastal guides mention kittiwakes nesting exclusively on south-facing crags. You spot 3 nests, all angled landward. Either this cliff's backside is a bird airborne, your compass is trolling you. Someone spots a driftwood log beached in a tidal pool, its bark picked clean by larvae. Limpets on the underside, the navigator mutters, means it drifted from the east. Wood density charts confirm it. Cedar this waterlogged hails from Novgorod's forests. A Soviet submarine once mistook similar logs for torpedoes. True story. The fog convulses, revealing a slab of rock pocked with chalky circles. Ah, the sailing stone, your navigator crows. Mainstream archaeology attributes these carvings to Bronze Age sun worshippers. Viking revisionists disagree. They say the rings represent seasonal tides. You trace one groove, it lines up with the sun's faint smear through the gloom. Coincidence? The guy chiseling this 3,000 years ago is laughing somewhere. Drizzle slicks the deck as you round a headland. A stench punches your sinuses, rotten eggs and cat urine. Sulfur Springs, a rower explains, pinching his nose. Sagas record this reek as a landmark for the family-friendly fjord ahead. Geologists later found 3 active vents here, their fumes strong enough to make a musk ox faint. Mist morphs into a woolly twilight. The crew starts humming, a low drone that vibrates your molars. Ethnomusicologists traced similar harmonics to Sami navigational chants, but your guy's rendition sounds suspiciously like a pub dirge. When he hits a falsetto squeak, even the gulls go silent. A seal carcass bobs beside the ship, ribs jutting like a half-unzipped tent. Navigators once used such floaters to deduce predator activity ashore. No teeth marks here, just blunt trauma. Landslide victim, you ask. The cook eyes it for stew potential. The debate ends when a wave flips it, exposing a tattooed Valhalla ore bust on the blubber. Millennials, man. The ship grounds itself on a hidden shoal, keel screeching like a banshee. Everyone glares at the navigator. He shrugs. Tide's out. Tide charts from 1020 CE would have predicted this if they'd invented waterproof ink. You leap into knee-deep sludge, your boots suctioned like quicksand. 10 minutes of squelching later, You find a flat stone etched with runes. Turn back. KNUT. This place sucks. Twilight sifts through the fog, a dull pewter glow. The navigator points to a distant flicker, too rhythmic for a star. Farmstead, he declares. Satellite imagery later proves him right. A sheep pasture sits exactly there. But for now, it's just a glowworm's cousin twerking in the void. By midnight, the cold gnaws through your cloak. You huddle near a tar pot, its reek preferable to hypothermia. Medieval tax records list lighthouse tar as a taxable commodity. Your navigator dribbles some onto a biscuit. For courage, he says. You decline. He eats it anyway, becoming the world's first asbestos-tongued Viking. Dawn cracks the sky like a duck egg. The fog lifts, exposing a cove tufted with dune grass. We're here, the navigator sighs. Where's here? A 1960s excavation will uncover charred fire pits and whalebone tools, proof of a seasonal camp. For now, it's just a beach that smells of damp sheep and poor decisions. You crunch across mussel shells toward a rockbill. Pulling aside a thistle patch, you find a stone slab, its surface scarred with Norse numerals. Depth markers, the navigator says, for the next crew. Modern divers will dispute this, arguing it's a game board. But the 3 dried herrings arranged on it, definitely yours. The horizon bleeds into the sky like a watercolor left in the rain. No stars, no moon, just relentless gold. You shield your eyes. Summer's curse is endless daylight. The sun hangs at 3/4 height, same as yesterday, same as tomorrow. Time becomes porridge. A crewman carves notches into his forearm for the days, he says. Historians confirm Vikings tracked weeks via body markings, though most prefer ink now. Shadows stretch east, or is it west? Your sunstone flares even through haze, its double image merging when angled just so. Lab tests with Iceland spar crystals prove this works when you're not seasick. The navigator barks. Noon. But the shadow on his wooden disc looks identical to yesterday's noon. You bite back a joke about Arctic time zones. Something plops into the water, a leather bag bloated with urine. Clepsydra, a teen grins, pointing at drip holes. Fringe theorists swear Vikings used piss clocks to measure endless days. Mainstream scholars call it CREATIV, Chinese letter. But the kids' timing tonight's mead rations with it. Accuracy, debatable. Aromatherapy, unmistakable. The navigator squints at a birch slab, crude lines scored across its grain. Sun compass, he mutters. Archaeologists found similar discs in Greenland, some etched with curses against cheating thralls. This one's motto, swing low, sweet chariot. Anachronistic, yet catchy. Your boots stick to tar-sealed planks, each step a Velcro nightmare. Tax records show chieftains stockpiled tar for summer voyages and amateur dentistry. The cook offers a day meal, dried cod and twilight. You chew slowly. Without darkness, hunger cues vanish. A crewman snores upright, his beard swaying like a metronome. Is it bedtime or a tax audit? No one knows. Clouds belly flop across the sun, a 6-hour eclipse by your pissbag's count. Shadows flatline. The navigator panics, jabbing his sunstone at the glare. Polarized light sears a faint line through the crystal. There, southwest, he croaks, modern recreations. Proof stones located the sun within 5 degrees if you ignore the migraines. A raven glides past, wingtips singed gold. Birds avoid midnight sun naps. Diaries show Vikings mirrored their rhythms. No sleep, no problem. You swig fermented birch sap. Energy drink historians call this the original Red Bull, with fewer lawsuits. The ship crests a wave, and there it is. A glacier's edge fractures the light, prisming into a rainbow that stabs the sea. Sagas called this Bifrost's bastard child. You half expect a tax auditor to slide down it. The helmsman groans. Ice means land and land means bears. Someone sneaks a sun compass into your pack, its edge nipped with teeth marks. A rune warns, return or be told in song. Poets were the original Yelp reviewers. Dawn, or what passes for it here, smudges the sky peach. Shadows shrink. Your sundial arm tattoo now reads, Mead o'clock. The crew chants a docking hymn. Ethnomusicologists transcribed these melodies, but missed the verse where Thor gets audited. You scrape lichen off a boulder, it's neon green. 20 days growth, the navigator declares. Botany studies back his estimate if you ignore the guy eating warpaint berries. He offers you a handful. You decline. He hallucinates a talking walrus, applies for a scald license. The sun finally mercifully dips. Not enough for stars, just a migraine-diminished glow. Your piss bag's empty. The crew collapses, snoring in 4/4 time. Tomorrow, they'll swear it's Tuesday. You check the sunstone, its glow dim, but true. Science still debates whether Viking sleep depth matched astronaut trials. You don't debate. You dream of eyelids. The dream dissolves into a chant, low and guttural, as if the ship's ribs themselves are singing. You blink awake to a crewman, tapping rhythmically on the mast, each thump echoing a skald's verse about swan-breasted waves and whale road bends. Ethnomusicologists mapped these cadences to coastal landmarks. Turns out, Dragon's Yawn meant snarling fjords. The King's Mirror, a medieval manual, warned sailors to mark the sun's path in verse lest memory drown. They weren't kidding. Your fingers brush runes carved into the gunwale, a zigzag groove for storm evasion, spirals for tidal zones. Rookie mistake. Assuming Vikings loved doodling. Archaeologists found a 10th century driftwood plank in Reykjavik with a rhyme about stone teeth beneath foam. It matched a submerged reef discovered in 2014. Coincidence? The guy who found it got a tattoo of Odin's resume. The navigator croons a stanza. Raven's shadow swallowed by the bear's den, while pointing at a smudge of land. Polar bears never roamed Iceland, but Greenland's shores did. Later, you'll learn this verse pinpoints Drangr cliffs within 12 miles. For now, you note how bear rhymes with mare in Old Norse, a mnemonic for shallow waters. Genius, if you ignore the bear part. Someone hands you a dried cod, its skin etched with what looks like grocery lists. Root rhymes, a teen grins. 3 lines later, you're reciting directions to the Faroes, where the high tide licks thrice the stone's frown. Mainstream scholars insist it's poetic flair until a 2021 study proved certain verses align with lunar tides. The study's title, Skaldic Science, Don't Me, a debate erupts over whether Midgard's belt refers to Orion or a chieftain's missing bling. Historians still argue whether kennings held double meanings. Star maps, disguised as odes to Thor's skincare routine. You pocket a charm carved with Follow the gull who forgets his fish, later linked to a Newfoundland fishing ground. The carver, an overachieving 14-year-old buried with 6 spoons. Kids write, clouds mimic mountain peaks, a trick skalds called Freya's mirror. You hum a line about frost giants napping upright, code for icebergs. A crewman corrects your pronunciation. It's napping ankle deep, you meet brain. Then admits his granddad navigated Reykjans using nothing but a limerick, family tradition. Adding a dirty verse for Atlantic crossings, your turn to contribute. You butcher a couplet, something about tax auditors and narwhals. The crew stares. The navigator saves you, rhyme the waves, not the wage masters. Laughter erupts alongside a few truly disturbing odes to seal intestines. Dusk ha, who are we kidding? Perpetual twilight leaks across the deck. The helmsman mutters a stanza so old, the verbs have beards. The sleepless star knife divides the sheep from the ship. Translation: Polaris over Thingvelir's plains. A Kroob translates faster than Google Maps. His bedtime stories were all hydrographic surveys. You find a whalebone plaque under a sleep roll. Its etchings match Sagak's The Loonies Ballad of the North Wind. Researchers dismissed it as fanfic until someone noticed its star patterns mirrored 9th century supernovas. The plaques now in Oslo labeled Viking GPS B-sides. The skald starts around 7 waves, 7 days, 7 corpses. A cheerful little number about the Kattegat Strait's rogue currents. You miss a verse, someone hurls a squid. Oral tradition's brutal man. As Sudanite falls, the navigator whispers the rule. For every league sailed, 2 lines memorized. You drift off reciting a verse about chess-playing seals. It's nonsense until you spot a Greenlandic cairn shaped like a pawn. Your snort startles a gull. Coincidence becomes curriculum real fast out here. The helmsman kicks a warped floorboard. It springs back like a bowstring. That's the secret, flexible oak planks stitched with roots and tar. Viking ships didn't fight storms, they flexed and bounced. A wooden retort to Poseidon's tantrums. Mainstream museums gush over the Oseberg ship's carvings, but the real magic in the gaps. Archaeologists found moss stuffed between planks at Tonsberg. Norway crude gaskets, letting hulls twist without breaking. You could literally bend this ship around a fjord corner. Try that in your Prius. A crewman brags his cousin's longship survived a typhoon by dancing the rigging jig. You assume he's drunk until you spot the keel's T-shaped profile slicing waves like an axe through butter. Historians still argue whether that keel design was stolen from Slavs or inspired by narwhal tusks. Either way, it's the reason this floating toothpick hasn't capsized. You test the rails, fir wood soaked in pine resin. It's shockingly buoyant and smells like a sauna. The mast creaks, a single pine trunk lashed with walrus hide. No nails, no glue, just tension and prayers. Someone mentions the Gokstad ship's funeral voyage, buried with 64 shields, but 0 navigational tools. Priorities right. You lean overboard, meet your reflection in water, the color of tarnished silver. The hull's clinker-built planks overlap like dragon scales each, one a millimeter thinner than the last. Weight distribution part physics, part witchcraft. A kid scrambles up the rigging barefoot, his toes gripping ropes like a monkey on espresso. Crews trained since childhood, see. Flexible bodies for flexible ships. You try mimicking his crouch, your knees sound like a walrus giving birth. The navigator tosses you a rib bone. Whale vertebrae, he winks. For you know, flexibility drills. Right, because nothing says yoga instructor like a 10th century berserker. That smell again, horse hair mixed with tar. They caulked seams with it. Quirky bit. A Copenhagen researcher claims they added crushed juniper berries to deter shipworms. You sniff a seam, it's like a failed cocktail. The study's footnote, not recommended for modern yachts. Nightfall, or whatever passes for it, reveals the sail's faint stripes. Woven from greasy wool treated with horse urine for waterproofing. Romantic, huh? Each stripe supposedly marked trade alliances. Green for Ireland, red for Constantinople. But some nerd in Reykjavik insists they're rugby team colors. The debate's heated, the sail's edges flap, reinforced with leather from the same herd. Uniform stretch, uniform speed. Storm clouds bruise the horizon. The crew lowers the sail halfway, not for safety, but to balance drag and maneuverability. Keel plus half sail equals drift controller. Genius. You grip the rail as waves buck, feeling the hull twist sideways like a pissed-off eel. It's terrifying and weirdly smooth. No wonder they outran English warships. Who needs cannons when you're basically a nautical cheetah? Someone's snoring below deck. You peek, rows of men curled in wool sacks, swaying with the hull's rhythm. Built-in cradles. Never mind the bilge water sloshing past their ears. The navigator mutters about a cargo ship excavated near Roskilde, filled with French wine and walrus ivory. But its planks were recycled, including a bed frame carved with Thora Owen's Bjorn's heart. Awkward, dawn leaks through oar ports, each one a hand's width apart. Symmetry matters. Uneven oars cause drag. You count them, 32, same as King Harold's flagship. His secret, Crews rotated sides every hour to prevent muscle fatigue. Teamwork or tyranny depends who's yelling. The cook serves stew from a cauldron lashed to the mast. No spillage, the rims curved inward. Wave-dampening cuisine. Clever. You sip it tastes like seal and regret. The cook grins. It's the adventure that seasons it. Sure, buddy. Tell that to my colon. You trace a groove near the prow, a serpent's tail etched by generations of navigators. Ritual or quality control. Oslo's Maritime Museum has a sternpost carved with slow settlers suck. Real subtle. The ship shudders, riding a swell like a surfer on Ambien. You glimpse the horizon, a smudge of green. The navigator nods. Flexibility got us here. Stiff ships sink. A gull lands on the mast. Its shadow cuts across the deck like a sundial. Time to adjust the sail. The crew moves as one, ropes coiling, knots tightening. Efficiency born from hulls that forgave mistakes. You mimic their motions, but your mittens fumble. The helmsman laughs. A manna or jellyfish stings smoother than you. Fair. The dream comes back, waves reshaping into blue-tinted horses. Their manes are sails. Their hooves are keels. You wake mid-snort to the navigator pointing. There, landwind's breath. A warm gust smelling of pine and peat. The hull creaks, happy as a well-fed cat. That pine and peat breeze thickens. Not just wind now, something dank. Rotting seaweed. Your nose wrinkles. The navigator sniffs like a bloodhound. Always follow stink to shore. Turns out Viking noses were GPS. Mainstream archaeology confirmed it. Sagas mention steering toward earth smells after days adrift. You gag as a sulphurous waft punches your sinuses. Glacial silt, he cheers, means rivers ahead. A crewman tosses rancid butter overboard, your eyes water. Quirky bit. Some longships stored aged dairy in the prow as a landfall detector. The smell curdled at sea, but sweetened near coastlines. Don't ask why. You're too busy breathing through your tunic. Dawn bleeds orange, rippling the water into liquid copper. Seabirds screech above. Puffins mean cliffs, the cook muses, stirring a pot of cod entrails. Geese mean grassy bays. Ravens, shipwrecks. You squint, spot a lone raven veering west. The crew erupts in curses. Oars pivot like panicked centipedes. Historians still argue whether Vikings tracked whale breath, spouts visible for miles. Tonight, you'll swear yes. A humpback surfaces, blowing a fog of krill stink and salt. The helmsman alters course toward its exhalation. Better than stars sometimes, he shrugs. The ship's bilge reeks, a cocktail of fish guts, wet wool, and fear. You splash vinegar on your scarf, a hack from that Byzantine trader last chapter. It helps, maybe. The navigator chuckles, weak noses drown at sea. Land aroma 3 hits, charred wood, a village burning, fishing huts smoking herring. No one agrees. The crew debates fiercely, sniffing the air like sommeliers. Oak smoke, pine, birch, you idiots. It's always birch. You're just relieved it's not more butter. A sandalwood scent surfaces, tantalizing foreign. The crew freezes. Trade winds from Morocco. A shipwrecked perfume crate. The navigator scowls. Distractions sink ships. Focus on the rot. Nightfall brings a new stench, low tides, barnacle breath. Mudflats. Safety. The sail sags relieved. You stumble ashore, boots squelching in kelp. The navigator kicks a rock, it's mossy on one side. Landlubber compass, he grins. Moss faces south mostly. You drift off to the crew's snores, a nasal symphony of exhaustion. Even asleep, they twitch at new smells, a walrus's fishy yawn, a distant bear's den. Your final thought: Vikings didn't conquer oceans with swords, but with sinuses of steel. You jolt awake, waves slamming the hull like giants' fists. No gentle snores now, just men bailing with helmets. The sail's a shredded rag, storm winds tore it while you dozed. 3 days off course. The navigator roars. His sunstone lies cracked on the deck, stepped on during the chaos. A crewman retches over the side. Drank the sea, another mutters. Lesson 1. Never store fresh water in porous sealskins. Salt poisoning's a brutal teacher. Mainstream records confirm it. The Gokstad ship burial held barrels with seaweed plugs. After they learned the hard way, ice glints ahead, not the fluffy kind. Jagged teeth rip the hull. Reverse, reverse. Too late. You're marooned on a berg ship tilting like a drunkard. The cook clings to the mast, still gripping his ladle. Absurdity cuts through panic until you notice the food chests are gone. Quirky twist. Sagas claim starving crews chewed seaweed leather and hallucinated feasts. One account mentions henbane seeds under the tongue, visions of roasted boar, bread mountains. You'd laugh if your stomach wasn't digesting its own lining. Becalmed, weeks bleed together. Oars dangle useless in the glassy water. A crewman carves runes into his arm. Drought comedy. Dark humor keeps them sane. Others gnaw spear shafts for splinters. Historians still argue whether Viking discoveries, like Iceland, were happy accidents, desperation diversions gone right. Rain finally comes, but it's acidic. Volcanic piss. Someone croaks. They're not wrong. Ash layers in Greenland ice cores prove it. 9th century eruptions turned storms toxic. You cup hands anyway, drink the sting. Rebuilding takes moons. The forge bellows are dead, so you melt arrowheads on seal blubber fires. The new prow's lopsided, but floats. Uglier than Loki's backside, the smith admits, but it'll dance with waves, not fight 'em. You spot land at dawn, a smear of green, no cheers, just a weathered hand squeezing your shoulder. The navigator's eyes are haunted. He missed a star's tilt by 1 finger width. That's all it took. Survivors bury tools in the shallows, a plea to Njord for mercy. The ritual's precise. Rusted axes north, bent nails south. You add your broken compass chip. Modern divers found these hoards, centuries later proof of despair turned devotion. The return voyage is silent. Every cloud's scrutinized, every bird's path analyzed. Failures etched new instincts. How Current Chinese letter, when fog mutters. How ice hides its fangs under dusk's pink veil. You limp into port bearded and skeletal. Children point, legends in the making. The captain tallies losses on a notched stick. 27 men, he sighs, paid for 27 lessons. Tonight's feast tastes of ash and epiphany. Sleep comes in fragments. The crew's whispers stitching together a brutal manual. How to spot false harbors, when to distrust calm seas. Why mercy matters more than speed. Dawn finds you carving their hard-won truths into a new sunstone, one jagged groove at a time. You kneel beside the navigator, his gnarled hands smoothing a disc of bog oak. 13 notches edge the wood, each spaced like teeth in a wolf's grin. Carved under the solstice moon, he grunts, rubbing whale oil into the grooves. Mainstream museums would kill for this. The Unartok disc, found in Greenland's thawing permafrost, proved Vikings tracked latitude with shadow-casting genius. Midday sun hits. A birch peg's silhouette creeps across the markings. There he stabs a cracked fingernail at the shadow tip. 2 notches north of center, Iceland's a weak starboard. You squint, it's just a smudge on old wood. But his certainty is infectious, like watching a street magician pull coins from your own ear. Here's the quirky twist. Some dig sites found similar discs buried with mead cups. Ever heard it doubled as a mead game board? Spin the peg where the shadow lands determines your drink penalty. Nothing says Nordic pragmatism like merging survival tools with happy hour. Your turn to test it. The peg wobbles in trembling hands. Steady as a nun's vow, he snaps. Easier said than done. Waves jostle the ship. The shadow dances like a drunk firefly. Historians still bicker whether these compasses needed Viking gnomes to hold them level, or just really strong coffee. Cloud's muscle in the shadow vanishes. No panic. He flips the disc, revealing runes etched on the flip side. For overcast days, when Thor's too lazy to shine. It's an algorithm, wind speed plus wave direction, divided by yesterday's gull sightings. Your head spins faster than a berserker in a flea market. Night falls. Crewmen argue over the disc's true purpose. It's a cheese platter, insists the cook, waving a moldy way block. The navigator ignores them, polishing the disc with sacred intensity. You recognize that look, same as your barista perfecting latte art during a caffeine shortage. Dawn proves him right. The peg's shadow licks a notch labeled with a crude whale drawing. Markland's whale bays, he declares. 2 days later, pungent blubber scent confirms it. Those Norsemen could sell GPS apps today if they stopped screaming about Odin long enough to code. But here's the rub. The disc doesn't work south of Denmark. Tried it once, shadow pointed inland, while the crew crashed into Britain. Awkward. Hence the backup plan, kidnapping local monks to ask directions. Efficiency meets embarrassment, the Viking way. You pocket a wood shaving from the disc, souvenir or future kindling. Either way, It smells like hope and yesterday's herring. The navigator catches you grunting approval. Better than raven guts, but don't worship it. Too late, you're already composing odes to its splintery majesty. Sleep comes fitfully, the disk's notched edge haunting your palm lines. In dreams, it grows to the size of a shield, spinning you toward bioluminescent fjords. You wake clutching the shaving, its oil staining the dawn pink. Some tools outlive their makers, whispering latitude to anyone patient enough to listen. You grip the rail as longships swarm the horizon, their striped sails puffing like bellows. This isn't a raid, it's Viking rush hour. Gelling stones, shadow marks safe harbor, mutters the navigator, nodding toward a rune-carved rock on shore. Mainstream history forgets this. Norse traders hauled walrus ivory to Baghdad's markets. 8,000 miles before GPS toll booths. Honey-colored amber clinks in your palm, traded for that Icelandic sheep cheese haunting the ship's odor. Best currency this side of Valhalla, grins a merchant, his teeth dyed blue from crushed woad. Here's the quirky bit. Some amber amulets held star maps inside resin. Imagine wearing constellations as jewelry. The original charm bracelet for directionally challenged raiders. Sails snap above as you dock at Berka, the Costco of the Viking Age. Silver dirhams glint in stalls. Chinese silk flutters beside Frankish swords. Price check the astrolabe. Someone shouts, but it's just a drunk smith hawking dented helms. You dodge a bartering match over reindeer trousers. 18 grams of silver final offer. Alas, no returns after purchase. The navigator leads you inland, past smoke-belching forges. Trade routes mirror the night sky, he rasps, gesturing at a star chart scratched into dried goatskin. The summer triangle Vega, Altair, Deneb aligns with ports from Dublin to Novgorod, star-charted capitalism, turning celestial highways into trade winds. Dusk brings a revelatory headache. Mead flows as traders debate routes. Greenland's ice caves have better markup. Versus, the Volga bends like Freya's necklace prophet waits upstream. Historians still bicker whether these paths were mapped intentionally or just happy accidents from sunstone-addled sailors. Your bets are on the latter. Midnight finds you decoding cargo manifests by Waylo lamp. 12 barrels of fermented cloudberries, 3 polar bear pelts, 1 Hungarian horse bridle cursed by a shaman. Standard fare. The navigator snores nearby, still clutching his compass disc. Moonlight catches its notches, aligning perfectly with Ursa Major's claws above. Poetic, if you ignore the dried herring stuck to its edge. Dawn's first light reveals the masterstroke, star paths, and trade routes etched into the ship's deck. Each carved line connects ports to constellations. A celestial Amazon prime delivery map. Skip the Baltic, Jupiter's too low for safe passage, advises a yawn-voiced helmsman. You mentally note, avoid planetary congestion fees. But here's the catch: wealth flowed where currents and stars agreed. Miss the Lyra alignment. Your fur pelts mold before reaching Constantinople. Forget the dog stars rise. Those Sami drums you're hauling become firewood in Greenland. Timing was everything. And also, theft insurance. You pocket a star amber chunk, its trapped comet shard glittering. The navigator side-eyes you. Good luck charm or bad, he grunts. Depends, does it ward off storms or just eBay-savvy archaeologists? Sunset paints the bay blood orange as ships depart, sterns heavy with Arabic glass and Kiev's honey. Their masts tilt toward Cassiopeia, that heavenly W, now a neon open for business sign. You lean overboard, the wake churns with bioluminescent plankton. For heartbeat, sea and sky mirror each other. Stars below, stars above, and you, squinty-eyed middleman, floating between cash and cosmos. The navigator offers a cryptic grin. Next stop, wave patterns shaped like Thor's beard. You groan. Poetic. Until you remember Thor's beard is basically a hurricane. You clutch the mast as Thor's beard turns out means 40-foot swells. Salt crusts your lips, tastes like the oceans trying to pickle you. Vinland's closer than your common sense, barks Erikson's ghost. Or maybe it's just the ship's cook, hallucinating fermented shark. Let's get mainstream. Leif's crew did land in Newfoundland. Science proved it, rusted nails and butternut shells at Elant's ox meadows. But textbooks skip the weird part. His crew reported one-legged giants hurling boulders, probably just hungover sailors, mistaking rock slides for monsters. The sunstone glints, its pink Icelandic spar cutting through fog like Valhalla's laser pointer. Steer where the light bleeds sideways, grunts the navigator, now wearing sheepskin mittens to avoid frostbite-induced sextant drops. You squint westward, waves flatten into milky stillness. Land emerges, not as cliffs or forests, but as driftwood smelling of pine resin. First rule of Viking real estate, sniff before you pillage. Skraelings watch from tree lines, their obsidian blades glinting. Trade begins awkwardly, red cloth for whatever that furry thing is. Spoiler, it's a raccoon. Nobody wins. Here's the quirky kicker, digs in Maine. Found a Norse coin minted for Olaf III. Historians still argue whether it's proof of a lost settlement or some Vikings been shopping accident. Either way, imagine Leif at a Maine lobster shack arguing about tariffs. Dusk pits the crew against the ultimate foe, mosquitoes. Surt's fiery beard burns less. Someone wails, swatting at clouds of winged misery. You smear rancid butter on your face, the medieval equivalent of off. Meanwhile, Erikson paces the shore. His legacy isn't just landfalls, it's stubbornness. He sailed past Greenland's thawing corpse when others hunkered down. The Atlantic wasn't a barrier, just a cranky neighbor. Winter stomps in. Frost feathers the longship's prow, stars glitter like ice chips. Write the saga here, a crewman urges, but runes freeze to the chisel. Survival trumps poetry. You stash bare pelts and abandon Vinland, too many trees, too few mead halls, the open debate, whether they meant to colonize or just got lost chasing walrus ivory residuals. Centuries later, you're ankle deep in a Maine mudflat. A hobbyist metal detector screeches. Found a stray penny. He crows, ignoring the tattered Viking prayer carved nearby. The coin's journey, pocket to pit to pawn shop, mocks Leif's dream. Legacy fades, but the Atlantic still whispers his name each time a storm guts a modern yacht. Stars wheel overhead as you tramp back to camp. Erikson's route glows on your phone's GPS, a dotted line across digital blue. The Navigators' ghost mutters, "They'll forget the storms, remember the lie." You pocket the penny. Some legends aren't forged in blood, just stubborn hope and bad weather. Rain taps the tent, echoing ancient ore dips. In the dark, you grin. Explorers never die, they just become punchlines for Arctic tour guides. And here's where Leif forgot his mittens. Q groans. The true Vinland, a horizon that refuses to stay empty. The campfire's last embers die. Your phone flashlight shreds the dark instead. Its blue glare feels inadequate. You picture Leif Erikson laughing through his frost-chapped beard. Your glowing rectangle needs clouds to work. Cue a Budapest lab in 2013. Scientists sweating inside a fog chamber. Baseline fact. They strapped Icelandic spar crystals to rotating stands. Volunteers wearing literal Viking-era wool. Check. Result. 86% accuracy, pinpointing the sun through artificial gloom. Eat your heart out, Google Maps. A researcher adjusts her goggles. Now let's simulate bloodshot eyes from mead hangovers. No one takes her seriously. Meanwhile, somewhere in Trondheim, a grad student drops a Sunstone replica into a kiddie pool. His Viking ship is a plastic dragon toy from IKEA. 7 tries later, it still floats toward a lamp disguised as the sun. Peer-reviewed. Nope. Adorable. Absolutely. The debate starts here. Historians bicker whether they used cordierite or Iceland's spar. Minerals quarried across Scandinavia play hide-and-seek in archaeological digs. One team found a shard inside a 12th century compass case, crushed beneath Thor's hammer pendant. Coincidence? Maybe. Poetry? Definitely. Back to you, bare feet numb on dew-slick grass. You squint at the moon. Modern sailors rely on satellites. Vikings, red lights, hidden fingerprints. Same sky, different decoders. A mosquito drones past. Don't even think about it, you mutter. The lab techs never mentioned blood-sucking sidekicks. Midnight now. Somewhere, a French optics journal publishes yet another Sunstone paper. The conclusion: medieval seafarers could have crossed oceans using Rayleigh scattering alone. Translation: Vikings were basically physicists with battle axes. You snort, imagining Eric, the red scribbling equations between raids. Dawn breaks soggy cereal for breakfast. Science has validated the myths, mostly. But one mystery lingers: the Sunstones. Glow sagas describe. No labs recreated that eerie light yet. Could it be Viking poetry or a lost technique? The spar winks at you from your pocket, its edges frayed by centuries of doubt. Rain returns, pelting your hoodie like a taunt. You pocket the crystal. Some truths outlive proof, surviving in the space between fact and fjord-born grit. Dawn pries open the sky stillness, broken by wings, slicing salt-heavy air. You spot a V formation overhead, geese heading west like arrows, fired from Norway's coast. Mainstream fact incoming. Norse captains carried ravens in wicker cages. Release one, watch its path. Land-hungry bird flies straight. Follow. Circling means keep searching. GPS beta version with feathers. Your coffee steams. Bird-brained navigation. You smirk. But modern studies show migrating cranes align flight paths with magnetic fields. Viking routes from Bergen to Iceland, nearly identical to thrush migrations. Coincidence or plagiarism? A tern dives plucks a fish like it's mocking your skepticism. Now, the weird bit. Excavations near Reykjavik unearthed hollowed bird bones, purpose unknown, until some hypercaffeinated grad student blew into one. Turns out they mimic curlew calls. Fringe theory alert. Vikings lured flocks mid-voyage to steal their directional mojo. Ethical, questionable. Genius, Björn the bird thief would say yes. Historians still argue whether Norse sailors used live birds as compasses or just ate them. Imagine the pitch. Emergency rations and a navigation system. Crumbs dot your hoodie sleeve. Context matters, folks. You toss a pebble, watch it skip thrice before sinking. Ravens required feeding, which explains saga scenes of sailors sharing dried cod with their guides. Symbiosis with black-feathered freeloaders, nature's first in-flight catering. Dew clings to grass blades as you trek uphill. A puffin glides past, its comic urgency a living rebuke to grid coordinates. Modern sailors stare at screens. Vikings parsed wing beats. One method leaves you squinting at pixelated maps. The other lets you taste storm-charged winds 3 hours out. Never get lost, your scoutmaster once said. Moss grows on north sides. Tell that to a Viking soaked by horizontal rain, moss everywhere. Birds didn't lie. A jagged cry echoes, your head snaps up. Just a gull, muscle memory from ancestors you'll never name. The debate claws your thoughts. Was bird navigation deliberate strategy or desperation? Picture some Sunstone-less crew adrift, throwing crumbs skyward, gambling on instinct older than runes. You check your phone, no signal. The geese are long gone. Maybe they knew something your bars don't. Twilight now, sharp cries fade. You pocket a gull's feather. Tomorrow's problem. For now, let stars and wingbeats blur into one seamless whisper, the old world's heartbeat. Steady beneath your soles. Dawn pries open the sky, stillness broken by wings, slicing salt-heavy air. You spot a V formation overhead, geese heading west like arrows, fired from Norway's coast. Mainstream fact incoming. Norse captains carried ravens in wicker cages. Release one, watch its path. Land-hungry bird flies straight. Follow. Circling means keep searching. GPS beta version with feathers. Your coffee steams. Bird-brained navigation. You smirk. But modern studies show migrating cranes align flight paths with magnetic fields. Viking routes from Bergen to Iceland, nearly identical to thrush migrations. Coincidence or plagiarism? A tern dives plucks a fish like it's mocking your skepticism. Now, the weird bit. Excavations near Reykjavik unearthed hollowed bird bones, purpose unknown, until some hyper-caffeinated grad student blew into one. Turns out they mimic curlew calls. Fringe theory alert. Vikings lured flocks mid-voyage to steal their directional mojo. Ethical, questionable. Genius, Björn the bird thief would say yes. Historians still argue whether Norse sailors used live birds as compasses or just ate them. Imagine the pitch. Emergency rations and a navigation system. Crumbs dot your hoodie sleeve. Context matters, folks. You toss a pebble, watch it skip thrice before sinking. Ravens required feeding, which explains saga scenes of sailors sharing dried cod with their guides. Symbiosis with black-feathered freeloaders, nature's first in-flight catering. Dew clings to grass blades as you trek uphill. A puffin glides past, its comic urgency a living rebuke to grid coordinates. Modern sailors stare at screens. Vikings parsed wing beats. One method leaves you squinting at pixelated maps. The other lets you taste storm-charged winds 3 hours out. Never get lost, your scoutmaster once said. Moss grows on north sides. Tell that to a Viking soaked by horizontal rain, moss everywhere. Birds didn't lie. A jagged cry echoes, your head snaps up. Just a gull, muscle memory from ancestors you'll never name. The debate claws your thoughts. Was bird navigation deliberate strategy or desperation? Picture some Sunstoneless crew adrift, throwing crumbs skyward, gambling on instinct older than runes. You check your phone, no signal. The geese are long gone. Maybe they knew something your bars don't. Twilight now, sharp cries fade. You pocket a gull's feather. Tomorrow's problem. For now, let stars and wingbeats blur into one seamless whisper, the old world's heartbeat, steady beneath your soles. Example output. Waves slam the hull, each groan sounds like a beast prowling below. You grip the rail, knuckles white as the foam. Moonlight fractures through clouds, revealing nothing but heaving black. The sagas warned of tentacled horrors here, kraken rising to crush ships like kindling. Mainstream fact. Greenland shark meets hallucinogenic. Toxic if untreated. Imagine hunger-stunned sailors gnawing it, visions of swirling demons. Voila, monster myth origin story. Bon appetit. A logbook entry catches your eye. Sea serpent longer than 6 longships. Modern nerds float theories. Oarfish, colossal squid, or just seaweed after a 6-barrel mead binge. You smirk until something bumps the boat. Not a rock, the water's too deep. Heartbeats sync with the creaking mast. Here's the quirky bit. Norse maps marked, here be whale bears. Polar bears hunting seals from ice floes. Mistook for hybrid beasts. Proof, a 12th century trader's diary describes snow wolves riding whales. Q, the heavy metal album cover. Storm winds howl, linen sails stiffen into ghostly wings. Salt spray stings like 1,000 needle teeth. Historians still argue whether Leviathan references traced to breaching whales or sleep-deprived poets. Either way, Vikings labeled storms, Thor's tantrums, and monsters Loki's jokes. Survival tip: blame the trickster god. You fumble with a fish oil lantern, its flame gutters. Shadows twist into clawed shapes. A splash portside, your head whips around. Nothing. Until a dorsal fin parts the water. Oh, just a basking shark, bigger than your apartment. Harmless, unless you're plankton. Your laugh sounds shaky even to you. Dawn bleeds across the horizon, the sea quiets. Monster shifts to metaphor. Those tentacles may be just rogue waves. Yermungandr's coils, riptides. Yet, a chill lingers. Not all tales were fiction. A sunken longship off Sweden held carvings of Midgard's wolf, dated decades before the Poetic Edda. Chicken or egg. Fear carved the beast, or the beast inspired the fear. You swig lukewarm cider, your throat burns. One final log note. Sigurd Snake-Eye swore a luminous eel guided his fleet through fog. His crew vanished, but his abandoned ship reached shore. Steering wheel lashed with kelp. Historians mutter about bioluminescent plankton or mythic excuses for Viking Uber Eats deliveries. Night falls again, stars smothered by cloud wool. You hum an old stanza, throat tight. The ocean's pulse thrums through the deck. Something brushes the keel leathery. Imaginary. Does it matter? Sleep tugs your eyelids. Let monsters keep their secrets. You've got storms to survive by morning. Your boots sink into rain-softened earth beside a fjord. The air tastes of iron and damp wool. Ahead, a moss-crusted burial mound. Mainstream fact. Incoming, 2 women's skeletons lay inside the Oseberg ship, adorned with engraved navigational tools. You crouch, fingers brushing a replica brass dial. Sagas forgot their names, but not their cargo, queens or captives. Some scholar huffed on a podcast you half remember. The grave's silks and sledges say power. The whalebone tiller says hands on deck. You squint. Was that glyph a wave pattern or just lichen? Your thermos clicks, tea gone cold. Quirky tidbit alert. 19th century farmers here found Valkyrie stones near female graves, carved with star maps. Academics dismissed them until a 1998 dig matched one to summer solstice sunsets. Oops. Wind snatches your hood, clouds bunch like warships. Historians still argue whether shield maidens steered ships or just inspired bedtime stories. Imagine the debate, but the BONES, but the patriarchy. A raven croaks overhead, sounds suspiciously like laughter. You trace a rune stone's edge, rough under your thumb. Modern recreations prove women's arm strength matched male rowers. Those embroidered dresses, arthritic thumb bones hint at decades of rope hauling. Your phone buzzes, a meme about girl boss Valkyries. Delete. Reality's thornier. The weirdness deepens. A 2012 thesis claimed menstrual cycles synced with lunar navigation charts. Peer reviews combusted, but an Icelandic folktale mentions moonblood tides guiding a crew home. Coincidence or erased expertise? You kick a pebble, watch it vanish into bracken. Twilight now, shadows stretch like keels over gravel. Your flashlight beam catches a carving, a woman gripping a sunstone. Or is she offering it? Context crumbles with time. Enigmatic archaeology's code for we're guessing. A driftwood fire crackles smoke, stings your eyes. Picture this: a captain's daughter correcting his course by star drift, her name struck from the saga for flowery prose. You smirk until the fire spits embers like ancient descent. Dew seeps through your jeans. Buried here, whalebone needles, a compass fragment, a chess queen. Checkmate symbols pile up, but the game's rules are lost. You scribble notes, ink bleeds in the damp. Women stayed ashore, insisted your middle school textbook. Tell that to Gudrid Thorbjarnardatyr sailed to Vinland, then walked to Rome. Her memoir, recorded by a monk who added 50 pounds to her waistline. Priorities. The debate itches. How many rights did Viking women really have? Graves say more than laws. A brooch clasp shaped like an anchor. A child's grave with many oars. Whispers of a fluid past. Moonlight glints on your zipper. A moth bats against your ear. You unroll a replica vellum map. Bloodstains on the corner. Cranberry juice for the gift shop. Still symbolic. Erasure leaves marks. Dawn gossips over the hills. Your train ticket peeks from your pocket 10:15 to Oslo. Histories, a siege, each generation scales the walls. You pocket a shard of rusted iron. Not a relic, just trash. Or is it? The fire dies. Embers mimic longship lanterns fading into fog. Somewhere, a tide shifts, dawn gossips over the hills. Your train ticket peeks from your pocket 10:15 to Oslo. Histories, a siege, each generation scales the walls. You pocket a shard of rusted iron. Not a relic, just trash. Or is it? The fire dies. Embers mimic longship lanterns fading into fog. Somewhere, a tide shifts. Cormorants screech. The fjord churns with arguments you can't unhear. Raiders or traders, the Oseberg ship burial held silks and battle axes, moral whiplash in oak planks. You kneel, pretend to tie your boot. Really, you're avoiding eye contact with a reindeer skull half buried in mud. Mainstream fact: Norse law codes find killers based on victim status, thralls valued at 12 ounces of silver. But law isn't conscience. A rusted weight in your palm matches those payments. Heavy, yet lighter than guilt. Quirky twist. A 1980s metal detectorist claimed to find apology coins Near Dublin, crude, runes reading sorry about your monastery. Experts dismiss it, but you hum, oops, I did it again, under your breath. Salt wind slaps your face. Imagine these shores 8 centuries ago, smoke rising where a hall once stood. Glory or theft depends who tells the story. A saga brags of reddening seas, a monk's chronicle inks, God, spare us their fury. You kick a stone, watch it skid toward the water. Did a raider's son ever ask, why do we burn their churches? Sagas skip that page. Tattered sails flap in your mind, voices drowned by waves. Historians still argue whether Viking crews felt remorse, or just upgraded from raiding to tax collecting once kings got involved. Your latte-stained notebook reads, violence as PR campaign. Your thumb traces a scratch on the reindeer skull, ritual kill, or midnight snack. Both, maybe. Ethics get blurry when hunger's involved. A tour group clatters past. Teenagers snap selfies with plastic helmets. What if we're the baddies? One mutters, quoting a meme. His friend laughs until a gull shrieks like a wounded horse. Awkward, you find a plaque nailed to a pine tree. Leif Erikson's third cousin once beached here. Or maybe it says picnic area. The rune font's iffy. Either way, history's written by whoever owns the chisel. 2 paths split ahead. One leads to the train station, the other, a reconstructed longship dock. Your watch ticks. Viking captains used sundials. You've got quartz precision. Yet, here you stand, paralyzed by Wi-Fi withdrawal. A child's sneaker lies abandoned on the trail, neon pink against gray rocks. You wonder, did Viking kids outgrow their boots before the next raid? Or get left ashore with promises of bring you a candlestick? Sunlight fractures through clouds. Your shadow becomes a helmeted giant. For a heartbeat, you're a skald composing verses to justify pillaging. They had nice tapestries. The wind shifts, brings a stink of diesel and ancient blubber. Somewhere, a scholar's arguing that pillage derives from apricot due to a mistranslation. That'll be a fun retraction notice. Your phone dies. Blissful silence, except for the tide's rasping breath. A raven lands nearby, tilting its head. Well, it seems to ask. You've read how Odin's birds gathered intel, feathered surveillance drones. 3 fishing boats chug into view, their GPS screens glowing green. They'll reach the herring grounds by noon. 1,000 years ago, same currents guided ships, same hunger steering hands. You drop the iron shard, let the next hiker decide its story. Maybe it'll be a genuine artifact on eBay by dusk. Capitalism, the ultimate raid. Train horn blares. You jog toward the platform, then pause. Was that a carved stone under the footbridge? Lichen. Wi-Fi login panel. Keep moving. The rails hum as you board. Through grimy windows, the fjord shrinks into a postcard. Your reflection holds a ghostly arm ring, or just a watch tan. Sleep tugs your eyelids, but across the aisle, a baby wails. You grin. Viking parents probably bribed toddlers with if you're quiet, you can hold the loot. Stations blur past, towns named after gods and storms. You doodle in your notebook, stick figure longship, question mark, tiny squid. Tilde tilde kraken apology, letter tilde tilde. Napkins litter the seat pocket, previous passenger's shopping list. Eggs, duct tape, Thor's hammer keychain. Archaeology of the mundane. Metal screeches, the train brakes. Your spine jolts like you've hit an iceberg. Through the window, just a pigeon on the tracks. Casualty free. The conductor shouts something, probably Oslo next. You check your pockets, still no sunstone. Just lint and that iron shard you totally didn't steal. Waves still whisper, pillagers or pioneers. Depends who writes the eulogy. You yawn, dreams conjure a grocery store where monks trade coupons for torches. Last stop. You step onto the platform, asphalt underfoot, ashes in your hair. A poster advertises Viking VR experience, rated E for everyone. The tilted sun winks, same as it did for Guthrum's fleet. Your train ticket crumples, joins the wind's littered parchment. Twilight bleeds the sky dark, and light wrestling like gods on a tavern floor. You stand at the rail of a longship, knuckles white on sun-bleached wood, praying the horizon stays empty. Stars flicker their last gossip. Polaris yawns. Dawn licks the eastern waves. Miss this window, and you'll circle the gray nowhere for days. A crewman hums, off-key, as he twists a sunstone in stiff fingers. The Iceland spar glints milky yellow, then flares as it finds the sun's ghost behind clouds. 2 fingers left of the prow, he growls. Historians confirmed this dance centuries later, using lab-grown crystals and polarized lasers. Less romantic than sagas, but science rarely is. Your boot crunches a fish spine. Dawn's edge demands sacrifices. Last night's supper, sleep. Sometimes sanity. You squint at the color shift, sky morphing from squid ink to bruised plum. One wrong guess, a lifetime of remember that time we starved. Jokes around mead halls. There's a fringe theory, whispered in Baltic taverns, that dawn itself had weight. Fishermen swore they seen it pool like mercury in a captain's palm. A dawn ribbon guiding ships. You stifle a laugh until the waves do glint oddly, hallucination or hangover. Both require more ale. Shadows stretch slimy and deceptive as the sun claws upward. Your sun compass, a notched disc looted from a Saxon monk's toolkit, trembles in the wind. Align the shadow with the right carve, or end up sighting icebergs for eternity. Someone retches overboard. You recall a saga verse. The sea favors those who taste her twice. Poetic, until you're the one heaving. Historians still argue whether twilight voyages preferred star maps or sunstones. Your gut says both, and a hefty dose of bluffing. Land, oh, just over there, works until the crew starts eyeing you as emergency rations. Clouds conspire, swallowing the sun. The stone goes dull. Your throat tightens. Then a slit of gold bleeds through, a celestial thumbs up. Cheers rise, ragged but real. You wink at the sunstone. Show off. The helmsman adjusts course, wood creaking like an old man's knees. Steer into the light's middle, you advise, hoping it's wisdom, and not last night's eel stew talking. Southeast now, toward a rumor of sheep and sheltered bays, waves slap approval. The stone gets pocketed, its job done. But dawn's real secret, it's a flirt, teases with warmth, then hands you a sky full of glare. You shield your eyes, taste salt and hope. Next time, you mutter, negotiate better with the sunrise. Shadows harden into day. The crew chants a shanty badly. You count horizon notches, pretend they're counting on you. The ocean's a chessboard, and you've just avoided checkmate by a hair's breadth. Sleep tugs, one eye stays open. Always one. The storm comes howling, not the shy kind that whistles. This one's a drunk bear in a mead hall. Waves smash the hull, your sandals squelch with each lurch. Someone's screaming about Njord's wrath, or maybe just seasickness. Enter the Berserker. He's shirtless in the chaos, tattoos swirling like storm clouds, laughing as salt water slaps his chest. Most men cling to ropes. He's swaying with the mast's rhythm. Fight the sea, you lose, he bellows. Dance with her, she'll spare your guts. Historians confirm berserkers joined voyages, their sagas etched with men who became the storm. Muscle-bound GPS units, maybe. The crew's panic ebbs as he slaps a thrashing rookie. Fear drowns faster than fools. A wave vaults the deck, cold enough to freeze your prayers. The berserker grabs the steering oar, veins popping like ship ropes. Thor's heartbeat in the wood, feel it. You don't, but his grip steadies the ship, or at least the terror. Fringe theorists claim they chewed Amanita muscaria, those red-speckled mushrooms, to see the wind's bones. You doubt it. This one's high on the delirium of survival, and possibly yesterday's fermented shark. Lightning forks, a jagged crack in the sky. He roars back, and the crew roars too. Not courage, pure animal reflex. Even the gods might, leaned in, impressed. Night swallows the storm. The berserker collapses, snoring into a coil of rope. Blood seeps from his split knuckles, matching the twilight's last blush. You toss him a seal pelt. He'll need warmth, not that he'd admit it. Historians still argue whether these trances were battle magic or brain fever. You pocket a broken sunstone shard, your own talisman. Win the storm, lose the war, he mumbles in his sleep. Cryptic, or just indigestion, dawn leaks through again. The berserker's back on his feet, scratching a scar shaped like Greenland. Next squall, he grins. We let the oars sing. You hope sing doesn't mean snap like twigs. Someone offers him ale. He declines, staring at the horizon's fuzzy edge. Sobriety's the real madness out here. Fair point. The crew mimics his loose-limbed swagger badly. A teenager tries roaring at seagulls. They dive-bomb his lunch. Lesson learned. You watch the berserker sharpen his axe, steel hissing like a deflating saga. His focus isn't rage. It's a knife's edge slicing through doubt. Tempests bow to that. Maybe. Or maybe he's just too stubborn to sink. Rain returns, thin needles now, He winks, tossing you a fish head. Breakfast of champions. You chuck it overboard. Let the sea gods argue with that offering. The wind dies, mocking you with calm. The berserker yawns. Bored now. He's right. Surviving's easier than waiting to survive. Sunset again. His snores sink with the creaking hull. You envy that sleeping through the dread. The oars dip steady as a heartbeat. Maybe his madness was method. Maybe the sea likes a good punchline. You count stars. He counts nothing. Both strategies work until they don't. The rigging sags like wet yarn, ropes still dripping from last night's tantrum. You kneel to retie a snapped line, but pause. These knots aren't random. Interlocking loops twist into patterns, 3 coils here, 5 hitches there. The berserker's snores fade as you trace the grooves, each dent a sailor's fingerprint. An old-timer named Hacky sidles up reeking of cod oil and wisdom. Not just pretty braids, he grunts, nodding at the rope. My granddad's granddad said knots held numbers, secret math for counting tides. He taps a cluster of twists resembling waves. Full moon squalls. Tie this one slack. Neap tides. Pull it tight. Mainstream museums display reconstructed Viking ropes, carbon dated to the 9th century, but none decode their markings. Yet, Hacky swears his ancestors' rigging predicted a tsunami days in advance, knots loosened by themselves, like ghosts untangling warnings. You smirk until he pulls a frayed cord from his vest. Found this in Greenland ice, see the hooked X's. The carvings look like drunken runes, means whirlpool west, or maybe good fishing here. Depends on who's sober. Historians still argue whether these patterns were nautical logs or sacred symbols. Dr. Ingrid Sordel's 1998 paper insists they're mere decorative stress relievers. A theory Hacky spits on. Literally, stress relievers. He reeks of contempt. Try surviving December swells with decorative knots. One wrong twist and you're Loki's chew toy. Rain resumes, gentle now, as he demonstrates. Calloused fingers fly, looping threads into a 6-pronged star. Cloudbreaker knot for parting storms. He hangs it from the mast. Coincidence or not, the drizzle stops. You blink. Teach me the dry socks, not next. He snorts, but shows you a simpler loop. Grimm's gutter stops sails from clapping like drunk poets. The wind dies mid-gust. A crewmate swears under his breath. Fringe blogs claim Iceland's 1948 naval archives hold a confiscated manuscript, knots, that baffled the sea. Supposedly, it diagrams a tidal calculus using hemp and hawk feathers. The curator denies it exists, but won't let anyone check room 13. Ever tried knot math, you ask, half joking. Hacky's face darkens. A Dane did. Sailed straight into a berg chanting, the pattern's perfect, fished him out with lobster traps. Dusk brings an experiment. You mimic his knots on a spare line, 7 hitches, 2 crossed loops. The rigging creaks, then sways left. Told you, Hacky mutters, knots talk if your ears aren't full of mead. but a gust snaps your creation apart. The rope lashes your cheek, a stinging rebuke. Or they mock, he adds, grinning. Later, you find him carving notches into a walrus tusk, each groove mirroring a knot's curve. For the grandkids, he mumbles. Better than poetry. Moonlight washes the deck. You notice something: all functional knots face east. Ceremonial ones spiral west. A code, aesthetics. You'll never ask. Some mysteries outlive their makers. Haki snores now, knotting twine in his sleep. His fingers twitch, as if weaving dreams into rope. You pocket a discarded thread, its knots tiny and complex. Maybe it means beware of ice, or pass the herring. The horizon flattens calm as an unfinished saga. You lean against the mast, replaying Haki's lessons. Knots remember, he'd said, even when sailors forget. Wind stirs again, tugging at loose ends. You retie a frayed line, adding an extra loop just in case. The sea doesn't applaud, but it doesn't drown you either. Ash sticks to your lips like charred honey, the air milky with grit. Thor's blacksmith must be overtime today. Your sunstone dangles useless, its usual rainbow streaks blurred behind gray haze. Hekla's been pissing fire again, mutters a crewmate, scrubbing soot from his beard. You've heard the sagas, volcanoes vomiting enough ash to bury Valhalla. Modern scholars confirm Iceland's Laki eruption in 1783 choked Europe for months. Crops failed, skies wept acid, but 9th century Vikings lacked weather apps. How they dodge this lung-clogging bullseye. Haki lobs a herring at the horizon. Grandma said ravens flee eruptions a week early, feeling hell's heart quicken. He nods at empty skies. No birds today. Bad sign. A teenaged deckhand scoffs. Ravens, we've got Loki's breath clogging our sunstone. Calm your tits, Chinese letter, Chinese letter. Haki flicks ash off his sleeve. Sunstones don't care about magnetism. Ash scrambles lodestones, not crystal light. He's right, sort of, while magnetic compasses spin like drunkards under volcanic skies. Iceland spar crystals work by polarization. Tiny fractures in the stone split, light into sunbeams, hidden angles. You squint through your sunstone, 2 faint streaks pierce the murk. There, the sun's west of those streaks. Steer starboard. The helmsman hesitates, until Haki chucks a dried plum at his head. Overboard, the water's iridescent, ash floating like devil's glitter. You recall a Danish archaeologist's theory: Viking keels, sometimes scorched black near Iceland. Could they have coasted lava flows like flaming toboggans? Then again, same guy claimed berserkers ate hallucinogenic lichen. Credibility shaky. Nightfall brings no stars, just a sickly orange glow where moon should be. Haki carves runes into an oar. Grandma's diary mentioned this: sky boils, ravens quit, but Stone Eye never blinks. His knife pauses. She traded 5 hens for that diary. Worth it. Historians still argue whether Norse captains timed voyages around eruptions, risking lava to avoid autumn storms. Practical. Maybe. Insane. Absolutely. The helmsman groans. What if the sunstone cracks? Pray to Njord and loosen your belt, Hacky deadpans. If we die, I'm haunting your mead cellar. Dawn cracks open, a jaundiced yellow. Your sunstone's twin beams sharpen. Land appears as a shadowy smudge. The crew whoops you've outrun Hecla's tantrum. Hacky sidles over, reeking of triumph. Told you stone eyes beat bird brains every time. He jerks a thumb at the cowering helmsman. This one wet his boots. Liar. Then, why's the deck slippery? You leave them bickering, staring at the sunstone. Its cool weight feels smug. Modern labs proved these relics navigate within 5 degrees of accuracy, even under ash clouds. Take that, GPS. The captain stomps past, muttering about thrice-cursed skies. A seagull poops on his helmet. Hacky howls. Look, birds are back. Told you ravens knew. The gull now fleeing leaves a chalky splat. You peer closer, the poop's tinged gray. He's been eating ash, you note, or it's poetic justice, Hacky grins. Sky's balanced now. Captain gets crap, we get home. Fair trade. Someone starts a chant, Odin's eye never closes. But it morphs into a drinking song mid-verse. You pocket the sunstone. Its secrets simple, adapt or drown. Magnetic fields fail. Maps rot. But light's a survivor. Hacky tosses you a soot-stained apple. Next time, pack a raven. Or 5 hens, you counter. He winks, ash flaking from his eyelashes, like grotesque snow. The saga of stubbornness writes itself. Waves soften into glassy swells. Some crews broke under ash cloud delirium, hallucinating fire giants in the mist. Others thrived, reading sunstones like cheat codes. You trace the crystal's fractures, hairline cracks charting 1,000 voyages. Who needs stars when physics does your homework? The gull circles back bold now. It eyes your apple. Hacky growls. The standoff lasts 3 breaths, then the bird dive bombs his beard. Traitor, he roars, but laughter undermines the rage. You bite the apple. It tastes like victory, and a hint of sulfur. The apple's sweetness curdles as shadows stretch unnaturally fast. Hacky freezes mid-bite. Someone just stepped on the sun's face. Above, the sky bruises purple. A black disk gnaws the sun's edge, swallowing light by the second. The crew's chatter dies. Even gulls fall silent. You've heard of eclipses, but textbooks never mentioned the air tasting like burnt iron. Fetch the Verlva, barks the captain. 2 men scramble below decks. Hacky spits out his apple core. Grandma told me kings used these to win battles. Harold Hardrada delayed attacking England till an eclipse in he snaps his fingers. 1066. Psych out tactic enemies thought Ragnarök had come. The Verlva emerges, a wiry woman with raven feathers braided into her hair. She scowls at the dying sun. Cloudship's masthead bites the sunwolf's throat, Skull's vengeance. Translation, hisses the helmsman. Row harder or die, Hacky mutters. Night descends mid-afternoon. Stars blink awake but wrong. Polaris winks southwest. The crew panics until you press your sunstone to an eye. Through the crystal, the eclipse's corona blazes like a fiery wagon wheel. The sun's still there, steer by the stone streaks. The Verlva grabs your wrist. Scald's trickery. The gods demand blood price. Her nails bite, but Haki slaps a dried cod across her knuckles. Save the drama for Iceland. This is physics. Modern astronomers charted Viking routes, overlapping 8 total eclipses between 700 and 1100 CE. Coincidence? Maybe, but a Greenlandic saga describes Einar Flatnose halting a raid because sun's eye closed in warning. Historians still argue whether navigators exploited eclipses or cowered from them. The captain barks orders. Full sail. Outrun the wolf's jaws. Sunstones don't lie. The crystal's twin beams guide you northwest. But superstition's a stealthy foe. A deckhand keens. Hell's riding the waves. As bioluminescent algae flare beneath the hull, the Verlva lobs a pouch of hen's teeth into the sea. Appease Aegir, or feed the fish, Haki quips, stuffing wool in his ears against her wailing. Blackness peaks. The sun becomes a molten ring, a celestial forge. Your breath plumes in sudden cold. The crew's terror sharpens. You smell urine and stale mead. Then hope. A sliver of light bleeds through the eastern rim. The Verlva howls triumph. Skall's jaws slip. Praise Freya. Haki side-eyes her. 10 minutes ago you wanted to sacrifice Sven's goat. The gods are fickle. Reality bends. Shadows knife across decks in razor-thin lines. The sunstone's streaks blaze brighter, polarized light, intensifying as the eclipse wanes. You mark the angle. Course holds. Steady. Daylight returns washed out and watery. Men collapse, gasping like netted trout. The Verlva pockets her hen's teeth. My rituals worked. You're welcome. Someone vomits overboard. Haki inspects the sunstone. Cracked, but serviceable, he licks it. Tastes like betrayal. That's Sven's goat cheese, you say. You're holding it sideways. Later, rumors swirl. A Danish scholar claims Vikings staged eclipses by polishing mithril shields into giant mirrors. Ridiculous, but you've heard crazier. The captain stomps past, still scrubbing gull poop from his helmet. Next time, someone gag the Verlva. She's already asleep, snoring into a raven's wing. Haki carves eclipse runes into his belt. Grandma said priests in Uppsala predicted these using barley and goat blood. Stare at a bowl till you hallucinate the date. Accurate-ish. You pocket the cracked sunstone. Its flaw catches light, casting a jagged streak on the deck. Maybe imperfections are necessary. Perfect tools break under real skies. Dusk brings familiar stars. Polaris reclaims its throne. The Verlva sleep mumbles. Fimbulwinter comes. But first, herring. You lean on the rail, salt crusting your lips. Today's lesson. Science and superstition duel, but savvy navigators bet on both horses. Haki lobs a plum pit at the moon. It misses, plinking into the dark. Tomorrow, he vows, I hit that smug cheese wheel. The waves chuckle. Somewhere, a god rolls their celestial eyes. The deck still smells of panic sweat and churned salt water. Haki kicks a stray hen's tooth into the waves. Sacrifice that Aegir. His boot squeaks. A small hand tugs your sleeve. You turn. A boy barely waist-high glares up, clutching a chipped sunstone. Thorkel says, "I'm your problem now." His tunic's hem drips with half-carved runes, practice symbols for East, and stupid older brother. He means apprentice, Haki grunts. Don't wet yourself during eclipses, and we'll get along. The boy Arnfinn spits over the rail with practiced disdain. Grandma says I've got night eyes, saw the eclipse's edge first. Grandma's lie, you say, tossing him a lump of beeswax. Mold this into Polaris. 10 minutes. Modern textbooks mention Viking childhoods as brutal apprenticeships, but forget the dark humor. Archaeologists found tiny practice sunstones in Greenlandic graves, smooth, quartz pebbles clutched in children's skeletons. Trial by sky. Arnfinn's wax star resembles a drunken goose. Haki snorts. Ah yes, the legendary goose star guides fools to taverns. Better than your first try, you say, sliding him your own childhood carving. A lopsided runestone labeled Haki was here, and cried. Training begins. You drill Arnfinn on wave patterns, how choppy seal's breath differs from a whale's sigh. He mocks your metaphors until a rogue spray soaks him. Fine, whale sighs suck. Odd fact, some Norse kids practiced on shadow boards, driftwood grids charred with fire. Legends claim wolf urine made the lines resist rain. Unproven, but Arnfinn's board reeks suspiciously. By midday, he deciphers cloud breaks. Land that way smells like grandma's burnt bread, pointing correctly toward unseen Iceland. Progress. Disaster strikes at twilight. Arnfinn misreads the sunstone, sending the ship into a lazy spiral. It looked twistier, he protests. You navigated us into a whale's toilet, Haki groans, watching gulls dive for stirred-up krill. The captain stomps over, still scraping eclipse gull muck from his beard. Teach him the secret. Secret, Arnfinn breathes. You sigh. Every navigator's ace the lice trick. Stare at your scalp's bugs at dawn. They crawl west toward warmth, even in fog. If you've got lice, Haki adds, which you definitely do now. Arnfinn scratches reflexively. That's horrible. I love it. Historians still argue whether girls trained as navigators, their graves lack sunstones. But some cloak pins resemble miniature horizon boards. One Danish text mentions wavewives, steering through storms, proof or poetry. Debate rages. Nightfall tests Arnfinn's star memory. He recites constellations, but replaces Freya's plow with Freya's bad haircut. Haki approves. Now the real lesson, you say, dumping a sack of rotten herring into his arms. Follow the smell. This is navigation, he gags. Trade winds carry stink from fishing villages. Stronger reek means closer port. Your nose beats any star on cloudy nights. He inhales and retches. Victory smells like death. By midnight, Arnfinn navigates using dolphin phosphorescence. Their glowing trails become liquid constellations. You recall your first lesson, Dad pointing out a narwhal spout as the unicorn's compass. Haki carves a tiny longship on Arnfinn's practice board. First rule, never trust the sea. Second, always trust the sea. Third, he pauses. Actually, just survive. Arnfinn sleeps curled by the bilge pump, gripping his wax star. You spot the captain watching, face unreadable. His brother drowned last winter, he mutters. Thorkel thinks this'll cure his night fears. Will it? Doubt it. The captain spits, but fears a sharp teacher. Cut him or the sea cuts deeper. Moonlight silvers the deck. Somewhere below, the Verlva dreams into a raven's ear. Tomorrow, more drills. Tide chart rhymes. Maybe a seagull strike. You adjust Arnfinn's sunstone around his neck. Its crack mirrors yours, flawed but functional. Haki tosses a biscuit at the boy's head. Watch him wake up swinging, he grins. Kid's got potential. Dawn arrives smelling of damp wool and hope. Arnfinn's first independent bearings off by 15 degrees, but he corrects fast. Grandma was right, he says, squinting at the horizon. Sky's just one big storybook, you offer. Dragon, he grins, and I'm the tooth. Haki ruffles Arnfinn's hair, dislodging 3 lice. Welcome to the family, little Fang. The boy's laugh cracks mid-note. Some lessons take years. Some click like a sunstone finding light through storm smother. You toss Arnfinn the shadow board. Go chart yesterday's waves and find better urine. You smelled that, kid, the whales complained. He scurries off, already smarter, already doomed. Above, the real Polaris holds steady. Ancestors nod. Another apprentice begins the long walk from fear to fluency. The sea tolerates no other path. The horizon swallows the last flicker of Arnfinn's torch. Your eyes adjust to a new darkness. Not the ink black of northern seas, but the starless void between worlds. Above, the Big Dipper hangs, same as it did for Eric the Red. But now it's cross-referenced on an astronaut's wrist display. You smirk. Some tools change. Hunger doesn't. A screen flickers. Apollo 11 footage plays in grainy silence. Neil Armstrong's bootprint mirrors a Viking's heel mark in Newfoundland mud. Both say, I wandered. Both ask, who follows? You trace the moon's craters on Arnfinn's shadow board. Rough charcoal becomes lunar regolith. Haki would have hated spacesuits. No beard allowance, he'd grumble. Today's lesson. Viking tech birthed modern sky reading. NASA's Viking 1 lander, named with cheeky homage, used sundials to calibrate Mars cameras. Scientists buried a backup plan in its code, an algorithm mimicking sunstone light splitting. It worked. Even robots need ancient wisdom. But here's the twist. Those Martian sundials had a hidden passenger. Engineers snuck microbe samples inside tardigrades in suspended animation. 1,000-year voyage, just like Grandpa's fabled trip to Byzantium. Tonight, 1 trillion dormant settlers orbit Saturn. Poetic, maybe, Insane, definitely. You flick a raven feather tied to your keychain since Iceland and imagine ISS astronauts doing the same. Zero gravity fluff. Pavel's report from Mir Station floats to mind. Cosmonauts spotting phantom longships in auroras. Odin's fleet, they called it. Joke, or cargo cult reflex. Arnfinn's voice crackles through memory. Sky's just one big dragon. You glance at the Perseverance rover's latest photos. Jezero crater's crags could be Jörmungandr's scales. Same monstrous beauty. Same ache to map it. A coffee ring stains your star chart, perfectly framing Mars. Modern navigators leave different marks. Buzz Aldrin's manual for docking Gemini 12 had wine spills on page 47, alcohol-fueled precision. You debate licking the stain. Decide against it. Holograms now project starfields in training pods. Trainees curse when Polaris glitches. You prefer Arnfinn's method, learning constellations through saga riddles. Find the fishhook that caught Thor's thumb, you'd say, now pointed at Greenland. Odd overlap. Viking burials and space graves. NASA's Celestes program launches cremated remains into orbit, a death rite Eric Bloodaxe would have praised. Forge finished. Skybound. No difference between rocket metal and sword steel. Really, just newer sparks. Moon dust clings to everything. Apollo crews hated its gunpowder stink. You wonder if longships reeked of kelp and desperation. Probably. Great explorers rarely smell good. A blinking cursor demands attention. Your thesis draft waits. Comparative wayfinding, Arctic to exoplanetary. Peer reviewers hate the puns. You don't care. Tenure won't silence Hackey's ghost, laughing in the footnotes. Swipe left, Instagrammable nebulas. Swipe right, your cousin's reenactment longship, capsizing in Oslo Fjord. Comments erupt. Authentic Viking experience. You facepalm. Some traditions need less revival. Question: how did Norse mothers sleep while sons vanished into fog? Same way astronaut spouses do, staring at comms consoles, brewing fury and pride. Love's math. Risk divided by hope, squared by years. Glitch alert, your simulation crashes. The 3D Sunstone model pixelates into a disco ball. You recall Arnfinn's wax goose star. Progress. Debatable. Shelves sag with relics. A compass from Shackleton's Antarctic voyage. A piece of Mars meteorite. Arnfinn's warped shadow board. All silent. All demanding. You rotate Elon's not a flamethrower in one hand, helicopter parenting modernity's madness. Imagine trading it for a sunstone. Worth it. Depends on Wi-Fi. Midnight espresso burns your tongue. Apollo astronauts drank lukewarm coffee through straws. Sacrifices. The Eagle lander had less legroom than a fishing dory. Imagine Armstrong and Aldrin bickering over herring rations. Silent disco time. Bowie's Starman thumps through earbuds. You air conduct like a drunk Valkyrie. Mission Control would approve. Probably. Historians still argue whether Viking ley lines inspired NASA's launch trajectories. both chase spirals, celestial mechanics, or OCD. The universe doodles the same patterns. Your thumb traces a rocket's arc on the desk. Carbon scoring scars the wood. First lesson, navigation leaves marks. Last lesson, so does staying put. Dawn leaks through blinds. Screen glow fades. Somewhere, farmers in Namibia red sand dunes for tomorrow's weather. Sixth graders in Tokyo track ISS via app. Arnfinn's ghost apprentices. All. You snap the laptop shut, exit the cave. City lights drown the stars, but your pocket cradles a pebble from Greenland. Polaris hides. It's enough. The next void always is. The Greenland pebble warms in your palm, its edges worn smooth by ancient tides. You sprawl across a scratchy motel quilt, star charts tacked over humming neon signs. City glow smears the sky, but close your eyes. That's when the real voyage begins. A distant ice machine clunks like oars scraping driftwood. You count not sheep, but constellations. Ursa Major, Cassiopeia, SpaceX's Starlink satellites, Modernity's Draugr haunting the firmament. Your phone buzzes, a Mars rover's midnight selfie. Perseverance never sleeps. Neither did Viking lookouts, shifts timed by star rotations. Astronauts and wool-clad sailors share the same bloodshot eyes. Mainstream fact. NASA studies Viking-era sleep deprivation tactics. Crews survived on 20-minute naps, 40 winks between wave crests. You test it. Set a timer. Drift. Your pillow smells of airport hand sanitizer and fermented shark. Hallucination or memory. Here's the quirk. Sagas mention Hakarl as both snack and sedative. Inhale enough ammonia stench, you'll pass out anywhere. You half regret licking that recreation era sample in Reykjavik. The AC unit croons a lullaby, its rattle syncs with YouTube's 10 hours of North Sea waves. Authentic experience. Hypersomnia in 4K. Debate time. Historians still argue whether Vikings aligned sleep cycles with Orion's belt, waking when stars pivoted. Insane precision. Or just sailors snoring through celestial shifts. You try tracking Betelgeuse through closed eyelids. Fail. A siren wails outside, Doppler effect stretching it into a whale's lament. Your mind spiral dives. Columbus used similar sounds to stay awake. Ships, boy playing flute off-key, torture as tactic. You envy Armstrong's Apollo 11. 9 hours of scheduled oblivion before descent. Flip the pillow. Cold side. Better. Moonlight slithers through cracks, creating a sunstone stripe on the wall. You replicate Arnfinn's twilight trick, squinting until light fractures into rainbows. There. Hafnarf Jall's peak would have been southwest. Now it's aligning with a vending machine's Pepsi logo. Progress. Your toe brushes something, a crumpled Mars bar wrapper. Viking rations included honeyed hazelnuts. Same calories, less melting. Trade-offs. Email notification. Smithsonian wants podcast rights for your sagas to SpaceX rant. You draft a reply in your head. Payment in mead or Bitcoin. Delete half-asleep negotiations. Dangerous. The quilt's pattern resembles Greenland's fjords, threadbare where nuke should be. You trace Eric the Red's exile route with a fingernail. Left turn at Disco Bay. Right at the snoring tourist next door. Wind rattles the window, a poor substitute for salt spray. Viking ships carried woolen sleep sacks. You wonder if Buzz Aldrin's jettisoned urine bag still orbits Earth, a grotesque constellation. Heritage. Hotel art mocks you. A stock photo, sunrise over generic waves. You mentally replace it with Hrafnafloki's ravens circling a Walmart parking lot. Modern omens. Breathe in stale cigarettes. Breathe out a half-remembered skaldic verse about mist dissolving at dawn. Your ribs become ship timbers, each expansion a lunge through Atlantic swell. Drowsy myth-making. What if Neil Armstrong's "one small step" quote was cribbed from Leif Erikson's lost diary? Plausible. Poets steal. Explorers plagiarize. The moon's dust holds no copyright. Your feet dangle off the bed, replicating zero-gravity posture. Memorized NASA Psych reports flash by. 90% of astronauts dream of falling. Vikings likely dreamed of sinking. You compromise, floating while drowning. Clock digits blur too. 47 a.m. morphs into a star catalog number. HD 222,582. Unremarkable. Much like this motel, you recall the Greenlandic Inuit practice of Kominik, luminous knowledge from dreams. Your Kominik tonight features a dancing flatbread Jesus from that Reykjavik hostel. Spiritual? No. Weird. Extremely. The ice machine heaves again. Did longships creak like this midstorm? Imagine Snorri Sturluson penning sagas to the rhythm of straining oak. Bestsellers require ambience. A text lights your phone. You up. You ignore it. 10th century navigators didn't have red receipts. Bliss. Polaris glimmers faintly through pollution. Its position mathematically identical to Arnfinn's last voyage. Centuries collapse. You're 11 again, learning star rhymes in his smoke-choked cabin. The goose flies west when the fox is denside. Nonsense then. Gospel now. Your jaw unclenches. Velvet darkness presses down Odin's cloak or weighted blanket. Either way, surrender. The pebble drops from your hand, thuds against floorboards. Tomorrow's problem. Final thought. Viking sleep rituals involved whispering runes into bedding. You settle for muttering Proxima Centauri 3 times. Let the void sort it out. Dawn's first gulcries mix with highway noise. Somewhere, a cargo ship's horn echoes a steerboard turn. You hover between layers, modernity and marrow-deep past. No difference here in the drifting. Alarm shrieks. Sunlight murders poetry, but for this suspended moment, your Sigurdsson and Shepherd, Eiriksdottir and Ride, your breath sinking with tides in Karachi and Vinland. The cosmos hums. You forget to hit snooze. The Greenland pebble warms in your palm, its edges worn smooth by olden tides. You sprawl across a scratchy motel quilt, star charts tacked over humming neon signs. City glow smears the sky, but close your eyes. That's when the real voyage begins. A distant ice machine clunks like oars scraping driftwood. You count not sheep, but constellations. Ursa Major, Cassiopeia, SpaceX's Starlink satellites, modernity's Draugr haunting the firmament. Your phone buzzes, a Mars rover's midnight selfie. Perseverance never sleeps. Neither did Viking lookouts, shifts timed by star rotations. Astronauts and wool-clad sailors share the same bloodshot eyes. Mainstream fact: NASA studies Viking-era sleep deprivation tactics. Crews survived on 20-minute naps, 40 winks between wave crests. You test it. Set a timer. Drift. Your pillow smells of airport hand sanitizer and fermented shark. Hallucination or memory? Here's the quirk. Sagas mention Hakarl as both snack and sedative. Inhale enough ammonia stench, you'll pass out anywhere. You half regret licking that recreation-era sample in Reykjavik. The AC unit croons a lullaby, its rattle syncs with YouTube's 10 hours of North Sea waves. Authentic experience. Hypersomnia in 4K debate time. Historians still argue whether Viking sailors aligned sleep cycles with Orion's belt, waking when stars pivoted. Insane precision, or just sailors snoring through celestial shifts. You try tracking Betelgeuse through closed eyelids. Fail, a siren wails outside, Doppler effect stretching it into a whale's lament. Your mind spiral dives. Columbus used similar sounds to stay awake. Ships, boy playing flute off-key. Torture as tactic. You envy Armstrong's Apollo 11, 9 hours of scheduled oblivion before descent. Flip the pillow. Cold side. Better. Moonlight slithers through cracks, creating a sunstone stripe on the wall. You replicate Arnfinn's twilight trick, squinting until light fractures into rainbows. There, Hafnarfjall's peak would have been southwest. Now it's aligning with a vending machine's Pepsi logo. Progress. Your toe brushes something, a crumpled Mars bar wrapper. Viking rations included honeyed hazelnuts. Same calories, less melting. Trade-offs. Email notification. Smithsonian wants podcast rights for your sagas to SpaceX. Rant. You draft a reply in your head. Payment in mead or Bitcoin. Delete half-asleep negotiations. Dangerous. The quilt's pattern resembles Greenland's fjords, threadbare where Nuke should be. You trace Eric the Red's exile route with a fingernail. Left turn at Disco Bay. Right at the snoring tourist next door. Wind rattles the window, a poor substitute for salt spray. Viking ships carried woolen sleep sacks. You wonder if Buzz Aldrin's jettisoned urine bag still orbits Earth, a grotesque constellation. Heritage. Hotel art mocks you. A stock photo, sunrise over generic waves. You mentally replace it with Hrafnafloki's ravens circling a Walmart parking lot. Modern omens. Breathe in stale cigarettes. Breathe out a half-remembered skaldic verse about mist dissolving at dawn. Your ribs become ship timbers, each expansion a lunge through Atlantic swell, drowsy myth-making. What if Neil Armstrong's one small step quote was cribbed from Leif Erikson's lost diary? Plausible. Poets steal. Explorers plagiarize. The moon's dust holds no copyright. Your feet dangle off the bed, replicating zero-gravity posture. Memorized NASA Psych reports flash by. 90% of astronauts dream of falling. Vikings likely dreamed of sinking. You compromise, floating while drowning. Clock digits blur. 2:47 a.m. morphs into a star catalog number. HD 222,582. Unremarkable. Much like this motel, you recall the Greenlandic Inuit practice of Communic, luminous knowledge from dreams. Your Communic tonight features a dancing flatbread Jesus from that Reykjavik hostel. Spiritual? No. Weird. Extremely. The ice machine heaves again. Did longships creak like this midstorm? Imagine Snorri Sturluson penning sagas to the rhythm of straining oak. Bestsellers require ambience. A text lights your phone. You up. You ignore it. 10th century navigators didn't have red receipts. Bliss. Polaris glimmers faintly through pollution, its position mathematically identical to Arnfinn's last voyage. Centuries collapse. You're 11 again, learning star rhymes in his smoke-choked cabin. The goose flies west when the fox is den-side. Nonsense then. Gospel now. Your jaw unclenches. Velvet darkness presses down Odin's cloak or weighted blanket. Either way, surrender. The pebble drops from your hand, thuds against floorboards. Tomorrow's problem. Final thought. Viking sleep rituals involved whispering runes into bedding. You settle for muttering Proxima Centauri 3 times. Let the void sort it out. Dawn's first gull cries mix with highway noise. Somewhere a cargo ship's horn echoes a steerboard turn. You hover between layers, modernity and marrow-deep past. No difference here in the drifting. Alarm shrieks. Sunlight murders poetry. But for this suspended moment, your Sigurdsson and shepherd, Eiriksdottir and ride, your breath sinking with tides in Karachi and Vinland. The cosmos hums. You forget to hit snooze.